7, the board met in closed session under exception C1, C2, C11, C1, and C21. I like now a roll call. Call to order the August 22nd, 2023 Board of Education regular meeting. Roll call, please.
Mr. McBride.
Here.
Ms. Gonzalez.
Here.
Mr. Riddle.
Here.
Ms. Hannah. Ms. Fabian. Ms. Lensing.
Here.
President Ewing.
Here, we do have a quorum. All board members are present with the exception of Ms. Fabian. With that, I'd now like a motion to go into open session.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Riddle.
Second.
Second by Ms. Gonzalez. All in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Meeting is approved. Pledge of Allegiance. I'm going to ask Mr. Villalobos if you'd be so kind as to lead us in the pledge. Thank you. President's report. I want to say welcome back, District 60. So school started last week officially, and it is in full swing. I had the chance to visit a few schools already so far this year. Excited. Kudos to, I'm big on that. I want to say shout out to all of the social media pages. Seeing the kids capturing what's going on really opens up eyes into what's happening in some of the buildings, and so you get to see what our kids are working on, and especially the kindergartners with their graduation shirts on. So that has been awesome. I also want to, in addition to saying welcome back, want to remind everybody of the heat advisory that's in place for the rest of the week to make sure that we take the necessary precautions. Board of Education, there was a little bit of a back and forth related to our board agreements. So there was a request that we bring it back, at least from one individual. I know me and Mr. McBride spoke and did want to have back in closed session because he feels like there were things that weren't ironed out or agreed to. So right now we were aiming that for early September to bring in our IESB rep because we are wanting to get those done. And so I think if we set a target deadline of our second meeting in September, as it's already August, that allows more than adequate time related to the board agreements. I did get recommendations from Ms. Lindsay. Other than her proposed changes, I haven't heard any feedback based on that last conversation. But I do know that I did hear from Mr. McBride, and he still had some things that he felt like needed to be ironed out or discussed between the board and closed session. Outside of that, I know many of us are attending CUBE next month, so we are preparing for that. And then we did have our budget report, so that'll be coming forward at an upcoming meeting for official action. So make sure if you have questions, comments, concerns, you take the time to review and get those in. All right, we're now at item 6B, student board member report.
This works. Hi, everyone. Just a quick comment. I want to say happy beginning of the year for the students, and I hope that the school year is pretty great this year. Other than that, I reserve the remainder of my time for the student board member policy discussion.
Thank you. And then we have item 7A, Spotlight on 60, which does a good job of actually capturing our first day of school.
Welcome back, staff, students, parents, families, and community.
I'm super excited to welcome everyone back to the 23-24 school year. I know it's going to be amazing. I want to thank all of our staff and administration and everybody for making sure that this year is going to be awesome, and to our parents and students as well. So welcome back, District 60.
And we are so incredibly proud of our students coming in this morning. So excited for this new school year. This year we have a commitment, and it is to level up, try everything, and give grace. So we are welcoming our 9th graders and our 10th graders this year. This is day one of 180 of greatness.
All my classes, I think they're gonna be easy though. So I think it's gonna be a good year.
This is pretty cool, I feel like confident.
I'm gonna have a good year.
I'm a little scared for this year, but it's okay. It's okay. It's only a year, so it's okay. Well, 2 years, but it's okay.
We got kids that are focused, ready to rock and roll. Only way we do it here in Waukegan, Bulldog style, roof.
So excited to see our returning sophomores. We know that you are going to be the best mentors for our new freshmen. Welcome, freshmen. We're here to help you today. Have a wonderful day and a great year.
I'm really excited to have the students back in the hallways. I have a lot of high expectations for us this year. The teachers have worked extremely hard, and I know our students are ready. Just like the kids, last night I was putting my clothes out, the shoes ready. So hey, I'm ready to rock and roll.
I'm excited to be 8th grade, and I'm excited about winning that championship this year and going undefeated this year again.
I'm excited about being 4-year honor roll.
And I'm just excited about getting good grades and stuff so I can head over to the high school.
Hey, what I'm excited about this school year is that the students will be able to learn new material, new creative ways of learning, and really get involved in what they're understanding about the material and getting to know them. And I'm just excited to explore with them this year.
But we just want to say welcome back, Washington Wolverines. Go Wolverines!
I'm excited to see my friends again, and then just meeting my new teacher.
I'm happy that Ellie's coming back to school. She's kind of nervous, but she'll be fine.
And I'm very excited about the first day of school because I'm going to be meeting my new students.
Good morning, District 60. We are so excited. Today is our first day of school. We see all our scholars returning back to school. They're excited. Our teachers are excited. Our classes are going to be a warm, safe environment this year, but it's going to take all of us coming together as a community and ensuring that we make that happen. So if you know something, say something. Do not let a problem start. Let's tackle it in the beginning. Remember to do your homework and bring those smiles every day to WPS 60.
Thank you to our media team for that awesome spotlight. All right, item 8A, approval of the minutes of the special open session board meeting, August 1st, 2023.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. Riddle.
Second.
Second by Ms. Gonzalez. Any comments, questions, corrections to the minutes? All in favor signify by aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Minutes are approved. Now we have our opportunity for public comment. I'm going to call a few names at a time in order to expedite public comment. Each speaker gets 3 minutes. When I call your name, please come up and line up. Do want to remind individuals who are speaking of civility. I also ask that you refrain from mentioning student and staff names in your remarks. First name on the list is Chester. Second name, Pat Vukovich, and then Randy Savecki.
Hi, Randy and TP. Don't the children get 5 days of mental awareness a year? And I was wondering, can't you use...
And I'm sorry, Chester. Can we start the clock? And you can start over, Mr. Chester, because they didn't have it running for you.
What'd you say?
Just start over. They didn't have your clock on.
Oh, that's okay. I'm almost done.
Okay.
No, I was wondering, since all the children in the district have 5 days of mental wellness, why can't you use a day or two for tomorrow and Thursday? Is that in the plans? Come on. Okay, I'm done.
Thank you, Chester. Pat Vukovich and then Randy Savecki. Whenever you start speaking, your time will begin, Ms. Vukovich.
Here's a quote. If you have to sneak to do it, lie to cover it up, or delete it to avoid it being seen, then you probably shouldn't be doing it. Illinois law, forgery. When a person knowingly and with intent to defraud makes a false document or alters any document to make it false, this is a Class 3 felony. I have no firsthand knowledge of this situation of the alleged forging of the HR director's signature by the area superintendent. I heard of this first last week when a community member brought this allegation to the board's attention last week. I do not know if the accusation is true, but from my personal dealings with this person, I wouldn't be surprised. This area superintendent has lied about me to school board members, lied about the new reading curriculum and being in all buildings when in fact it was in none of the buildings. This person changed scores on my interview sheet after I left the interview room. I have a copy of that altered document through FOIA. Just like children, when someone lies about something and gets away with it, it becomes easier to lie the next time or do something worse. Has an outside investigation been done? Has HR director reported this to the police? Who was the intended recipient of the funds on the alleged forged document? I would caution the HR director and the board that with any expenditures of public money, it is your fiduciary responsibility to be sure they're spent legally. What kind of discipline will this area superintendent receive after an investigation is done? When the AP assistant principal at Whittier was indicted for fraud at Chicago Public Schools, our superintendent stated in the newspaper that she could still be an interim principal because her alleged crime happened at CPS, not in District 60. If, after your investigation, this area superintendent is found guilty for something she did in District 60, will she continue to work here? And my last quote is, integrity is choosing your thoughts and actions based on values rather than personal gain. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Vukovic. Randy Sabecki.
Couple things tonight. So we're going to start with my high school student. I said this to Mr. Ewan yesterday. Texted me from his classroom, his Woods 2 class. Said, look what I'm doing today. And it's a picture of a garbage truck. Connect the dots. Really? In high school? That's a disgrace to the high school students, to the parents, and everything else. And I brought this to the attention of the principal, and he said, no, that's totally unacceptable. But then today I get an excuse, well, we talked to it, the teacher and that, and it was so the kids can learn measurements. Well, how can you learn measurements if they're not even given a ruler to measure? It was connect the dots. And then at the end of that, from the principal, it said, but this is not the regular teacher that's going to be teaching that class. He'll start on September 5th, I think it said. So we're giving high school kids connect the dots preschool work? That's ridiculous. Of course our test scores and our graduation rates will go up if this is what our high school students are doing. This is your guys' job. Like I stated here last week, maybe it's the administrators that we have running these schools. We don't even know what they're doing. The teachers are doing in the schools with the students. And it's under their watch. And it's always an excuse of why when it's a parent that has to bring this to your guys' attention. And nothing seems to change. And then my other thing is tonight, I hope what Ms. Hannah brought up about bringing back retired teachers. Because my other student right now has a long-term sub. And they can only stay, that's a retired teacher. And they can only stay, as of now, 120 days. So what, December, end of December? And I hope we're looking into that and get that approved quick where they can stay so my student can have the same teacher all year. Because it's not fair to the students to go through December on a long-term sub and a teacher that graduated, or not graduated, retired, and brought them back and they can only stay 120 days. We have a shortage, so let's work hard and get that changed so my student and all the rest of the students can continue with the same teacher. We talk about disruptions and why our test scores are low. If in the middle of the year the teachers are changing, that's one of the reasons why. It's because they're starting all over, whether it's not. Now you have to learn a whole new teacher. That teacher has to learn the students. And that's why I hope you guys, as a board, work hard on that and get that done soon. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mrs. Zabecki. The next three names in order are Ray Bukovic, Brother Blanks, and Anthony McIntyre.
Good evening. On any given Tuesday, I can stand up here and pick 4, 5, 6 items that I could talk about because there are so many items to talk about. And the one I want to just bring up is looking at the calendar today. You've now completed, 7 school days. started the school year and you got teachers working without a contract. That's unacceptable. This board bends over backwards to have special board meetings in the spring because you're under a deadline to review the superintendent's goals and make sure that you can extend that contract out, 4 or 5 years now. Yet teachers don't know what they're going to get. You have the HR department trying to hire teachers at last year's salary, and they're competing against places that, number one, are making more than they're making here, but number two, they know what they're going to be making the next 2, 3, 4 years. And they don't have that here. This should have been a priority of this board. I've talked to other school board members in other communities, and it's one of their priorities that they have their contract wrapped up before the end of the school year. So teachers go home for the summer, they know what they're going to be making the first day of school. You drag this on and drag it on, and it's not fair to the teachers. It's certainly not fair to the kids because you lose teachers. And God forbid we go through another strike. You certainly don't need that in this community. But start treating the teachers like the professionals that they are. Pay them what they're worth. Give them some of the same benefits that you give to your top people. As I brought up last week, and you're going to approve tonight, the lawyer gets $200,000 of group life insurance. The superintendent gets $420,000 of group life insurance. But the classroom teachers get $70,000. There's so many other inequities there that need to be addressed. And until you start dealing with some of that and making that a priority, you're going to have vacancies in this district for a long time. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Vukovic. Brother Blanks.
Thank
you. Brother Blanks, Black Abolition Movement for the Mind. Black Abolition Movement for the Mind introduces Lake County's first National Black Student Union. Mission: an uncompromised and consistent commitment to assuring accountability within an equitable education of the highest standards and results for all black students and youth that is free from violence, hatred, racism, discrimination, and miseducation. Ensuring safe and secure scholastic environments throughout the Lake County area, uniting with any and all people of a similar mind in interests and efforts to make certain first-class schooling, development, and tutoring from early education through college or trade training. Objective: to teach all black students and youth that all accountability begins with one's self. To support, guide, and train young black students in the approaches to demanding a just and quality education from all institutions of education and higher learning. 3, last but not least, to assure that no black child who demonstrates a desire to move ahead is left behind. If you are a black student or parent or any Lake County District interest members, Lake County School District interested in membership and development, please call 773-510-1713. I just thought it was important to implement this for our students, because when I look at how often we find our staff and our administration and even school board members fighting amongst each other, we wanted to come up with a solution to make sure that none of our children get left behind. So this is something we putting in as a solution. We willing to work with the district, but it is important for you all to know this is an independent black student union. Unfortunately, the reason why we're saying nationally, because not just locally, many of our school board whether it's in the high school or higher learning, have become compromised. It used to be our school board and our student unions was the first to stand up against social injustice and first and foremost for themselves. Make sure our student board member get a copy of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brother Blanks. Anthony McIntyre.
So SB 100 speaks to interventions and how things should be done before you guys put someone on suspension. I think that, well, I hope this year that you guys put a little bit more emphasis on doing just that, honoring the spirit of SB 100 and utilizing whatever programs exist that may help those individuals before they get suspended. There is a black kids in the school district seems to be disappearing at an alarming rate. The math that I heard at the last student achievement meeting was alarming, and I don't know, there were things under it that I don't know if people paid attention to. Some people I'm sure did. But it's very alarming that the number of black students in this district seem to be disappearing. And I think we need to get to the bottom of why that is. It's a problem, clearly. Are they being pushed out? Are they choosing to leave? I don't think so. Staff members in this district need to learn to be honest. They need to be honest. You demand that these kids be honest. You guys are supposed to be the ones that are leading the examples for them. But staff members are continuously lying to this community at large, and it's not okay. And I'm wondering at what point in time does someone hold them accountable? The same standard that we give to these kids, why does it not apply to the adults who absolutely should know better? I think that's something that people need to really think about as well. The hypocrisy in this district stinks. What I just spoke of is hypocrisy. Holding a different standard for you than you do for the others. And what they get from that is a suspension or an expulsion before you even put forth the effort to maybe find out why they are in the position that they're in. The investigation that was spoken about earlier with regards to the area superintendent, I think we should know who was responsible for the investigation, because the results of the investigation, I think some people would argue, are questionable. And again, the law is funny. You have certain people in the community who have had issues with the law, and they're held to a different standard as well. A crime is a crime. I wouldn't care who committed it. And if it's proven that this has been done, I'm curious, what is the standard by which law enforcement gets involved in these things? When does it start? You would hold me to the standard of saying that, well, Anthony, you've been convicted of something. Well, the only reason I was convicted, you guys need to do better. That's my point.
Thank you, Mr. McIntyre. Final two names are Rayon Edwards and Krishana Hanna, in that order.
Good evening, board. I think we all pay attention to what goes on around in our community, and I was disgusted to see when I looked at board docs that we are getting ready to put someone in another manager's position, Mr. David Villanovas. And it's real funny to me that we're doing that, and we know the personal relationship that he has with a board member, Caroline Fabian. This nepotism, it got to stop. We're sick of it. Y'all can act like we don't know what's going on, but we do. We're sick of it, y'all. And then just on the night we finna do this, she don't show up? Come on, y'all. What have we elected y'all to do? So right now, and I'm making this public, anybody that can do a petition for me, it's time for us to go to the state on y'all. You got this area superintendent who admitted to it. The HR director emailed all of you board members. Do y'all not know that everything gets out? Nothing is a secret. But I keep going back to what we did to Dr. Hillary, that woman that looked like me. We did everything in our power to remove her from that position. The only thing that helped my black babies in my community. There was no fight. We spent thousands of dollars to investigate her. Just like you guys got that email about the director of special education. A lot of the information that was in that email come from the Freedom of Information Act. So we know it's true. But we ain't done nothing. He still got his job. Area superintendent still got her job. But that black woman, though, that black woman, that black sister, born and raised in this community, invested, and we've done nothing. Zero. And this is supposed to be acceptable. You think somebody want to come work for this district? They're underpaid. Teachers no support. I'm so glad y'all did an awesome job with the video, but we still ain't talked about the first day of school, the fights. Oh, that's going to keep a secret though, right? And I came to every board meeting and I told y'all what was getting ready to happen in the school year. Just like the district took one of our kids home, took him out of school, took him home, 30 minutes after he'd be home, his complex shot up. Y'all did that. Y'all took him out of that school, and y'all knew what was going to happen because I talked to everybody that I needed to talk to early that morning. I did my duty, and y'all still failed us.
Kershaw Hannah.
Good evening, board. I'm coming here speaking on behalf of safety. The safety in, I'm going to speak directly to the high school. We're 1 week in, and I came here last week or a couple weeks ago with, oh, we have so much fire and we're going to have a great year and things like this, but the staff is already complaining. They're complaining that they're not supported. They're complaining that things that they were promised to do with the students are not being done. The students were not told of their expectations. So to hear that the high school, the students are running amok and the ones that are out of control are the freshmen, make that make sense. They don't even know the layout of the school. How can they be running amok in the school? They were not giving expectations of what to do inside of the high school. So if this is going on 1 week in, what are we doing? Because the safety staff, they're already getting tired and they're getting hurt. And I'm coming today from a place of personal experience where I had to go and pick my brother up who works in safety from an urgent care because he was hurt breaking up a fight today. I hope it stops, but then what has been historically taking place is when the teachers or staff are hurt, you guys are denying their workman's comp. Fix it.
Mr. Clyde Backlemore will be the final commenter.
Good evening, board. Some of y'all are veterans, right? Do you know what PSD is? You know when you go to war and you get shell shocked and you get you get out of war, come home, and you still have them dreams and them thoughts when you saw dead bodies laying around, when you know you had to dodge bullets and everything like that. It messes up the mind. So the U.S. government give them compensation for that, right? You get so much for it. Our children are suffering from PSD. Now, what I'm talking about? What Clyde talking about? Yesterday, how many times a month do our children have to lock down in a school? So when they lock down, they don't get, when they do get out, they go home, they still in fear because something happened. You understand? Or, as Mr. Rayvon said, take them out of school for safety, and then the whole complex gets shot up. So, a child comes back to school. Did you do your homework? No, sir, I didn't do my homework. Why you didn't do your homework? I was trying to be safe. What will the teacher say? I was trying to save my life. I get tired of hearing schools on lockdown, and I know that y'all ain't got nothing to do with the community, but y'all got a lot to do with what's going on in the school. As soon as you let them out, they get wild. I mean, they're children. They get wild, they go to fight. I'm glad they're fighting and ain't shooting. But their fights get mob-like. And that's not fighting. I went to school, I know I'm a little older, you know, some of y'all. We boxed. That was it. And then the next day, we eat lunch together. I might have a busted lip or a bloody nose. We ate lunch together. We go try to talk to the next girl, to the next fight. But that was back in the 70s. This is 2023. Things has changed. So I just want to say our children are going through a PSD.
Thank you, Mr. McLemore. This concludes our public comment. We appreciate all those who came out to speak. Superintendent did take notes and will be reaching out appropriately. All right. First item up is our consent agenda. These items have been previously discussed and or should be non-controversial. Any board member can request that any item be held over to vote on separately. Are there any letters? I just need the letter name that you would like to vote on separately.
That's further down. That's under purchasing contracts.
Seeing as there are no requests to vote on anything separately, I'm going to ask for a motion to approve the consent agenda items A through K.
Mr. Riddle, I make a motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. Riddle, second by Ms. Gonzalez. If we can have any comments or questions on the motion.
I have a comment on the prom.
Go ahead, Ms. Lindsay.
Very interesting choice. I don't think I would have ever expected the class to want to have it at Pinstripes, which is known for bowling, but that's a very nice change of pace, and I hope the students really enjoy it.
Mm-hmm. Were they the ones that chose that?
They're on a committee.
Prom committee.
Prom committee?
Mm-hmm. Roll call.
Mr. McBride.
Yes.
Ms. Gonzalez.
Yes.
Mr. Riddle.
Yes.
Ms. Hannah.
Yes.
Ms. Lensing.
Yes.
President Ewing.
Yes, items approved, motion carries. I'll read those for the record. 10A, Waukegan High School prom. 10B, approval of the yearly renewal of ThermFlow HVAC contract. C, Waukegan High School Brookside, request for 2 culture climate positions. Approval of the yearly renewal of Gaggle contract. E, approval of the yearly renewal of File Wave contract. F, approval of the yearly renewal of Know Before contract. G, approval of the purchase of items for the digital equity grant. H, renewal of Infinite Campus student information system. I, renewal of DocuSign. J, attendance and presentation at the Sharing of Vision Early Childhood Conference in Peoria. And K, attendance at the Diversity and Autism Annual Teach Conference. Dates listed. All right, we are now at the consent agenda for operations. The items are there, items A through D. Would anyone like any other items to be voted on separately? All right, motion to approve items A through D.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Riddle.
Second.
Second by Ms. Gonzalez. Any comments or questions on the motion?
Yeah, Mr. President, I just, on item D, are we going to be looking to have some type of change or anything in the future with that?
Superintendent or
The life insurance.
Yeah.
issue.
So I see Miss Berry is with us. Miss Berry. Nick, if you could bring a box of Kleenex for the board back here, thank you.
Good evening, Board. Rosie Berry, Manager of Employee Benefits. Yes, I can call our insurance company and ask them for quotes to make that change and to increase the coverage level. I would need to get a quote to see how much it would be per employee.
Yeah, I'm just saying because we're getting ready to approve this. And I'm wondering about future changes because how long is this?
Your rates are locked in for the next 2 years.
Right, and if there's any change in that, we have a strategy to deal with that, right?
Are you requesting a change because what's
No,
before you right now?
I'm not requesting anything. I'm just saying that that is this going to be the final life insurance for the employees?
So Miss Berry, Miss Hannah, if I'm incorrect, so the life insurance, this package here will take us for 2 years. Is
Yes,
that correct? And
that's
and
correct.
if it does have to change, it will come back to the board for a vote. Am I correct?
Yes, that is
Okay.
correct.
That's what thank you,
Okay,
Superintendent.
thank you. Thank you, Miss Berry.
Okay.
comments, questions? Roll call.
Mr. McBride.
Yes.
Ms. Gonzalez.
Yes.
Mr. Riddle.
Yes.
Ms. Hannah.
Yes.
Ms. Lensing.
Yes.
President Ewing.
Yes, items approved, motion carries. I'll read those into the record. Item 11A, approval to attend 2023 CUBE Conference. Approval to attend 2023 ASBO Annual Conference. C, approval of architect certification of annual temporary facility report. And D, approval of employee life insurance renewal. 12, purchases and contracts. So we have 12A, renewal of teaching strategies, goal for pre-K.
It is recommended that the Board of Education authorize the superintendent or her designee to approve the renewal of teaching strategies Gold, GOLD, for pre-K in the amount of $16,834.40.
Mr. Riddle, I so move.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Riddle, second by Ms. Hannah. Any comments or questions on the motion?
I am just hoping that that this is in collaboration with the people that will be executing this strategy.
Thank you, Ms. Hannah. Roll call.
Mr. McBride.
Yes.
Ms. Gonzalez.
Yes.
Mr. Riddle.
Yes.
Ms. Hannah.
Yes.
Ms. Lensing.
Yes.
President Ewing.
Yes, item approved, motion carries. We are now at item B, renewal of Creative Curriculum Cloud for pre-K.
It is the recommendation of the administration that the Board of Education authorize the superintendent or her designee to approve the renewal of Creative Curriculum Cloud for pre-K in the amount of $23,400.
Mr. Riddle, I so move.
Motion by Mr. Riddle.
Second.
Second by Ms. Hannah. Any comments or questions on the motion?
I'm gonna ditto my previous comment of collaboration.
Roll
This
call.
strategy.
Thank you, Ms. Hannah.
Mr. McBride.
Yes.
Ms. Gonzalez.
Yes.
Mr. Riddle.
Yes.
Ms. Hannah.
Yes.
Ms. Lensing.
Yes.
President Ewing.
Yes, item approved, motion carries. Item C, approval of the ratified paraprofessional contract from July 1st, 2023 through June 30th, 2026.
It is the recommendation of the administration that the Board of Education accept the recommendation of the administration to approve the ratified contract with the Waukegan Paraprofessional Union and to authorize the President and Secretary of the Board of Education to sign the agreement on behalf of the Waukegan Community Unit School District Number 60 Board of Education with a 3-year value estimated at $3,927,820.36.
I make a motion.
Motion by Ms. Hannah. The second
Second.
came from Ms. Gonzalez. Comments or questions on the motion?
I'm glad that we are, that this is completed, and I pray that everyone is satisfied and that our staff will be okay. And so this is good. I thank everybody that was involved in coming together and finalizing the work. So thank you all.
Thank you, Ms. Hannah.
I just wanted to add on that, from my understanding, the union did an excellent job hearing from their entire constituents or members of that union to make sure that they were advocating for the right things. So not only kudos just to the union for your internal teamwork, but I'm really happy that the district was also able to work with you all and we got a fairly negotiated contract in place. Congratulations, prematurely.
Thank you, Ms. Lindsay. Any other comments or questions? I do want to say kudos to all of those from both sides at the table. I do want to state that the union has ratified. What I always appreciate is that it's not just the income conversation, it's about working conditions, and at the heart of it, it's about doing what's best for our students. So I want to say thank you to our parent-union representatives as well as those who are at the negotiating table from the district side. The union membership has ratified, and so with this action, the contract will be approved. Roll call vote.
Mr. McBride.
Yes.
Ms. Gonzalez.
Yes.
Mr. Riddle.
Yes.
Ms. Hannah.
Yes.
Ms. Ms. Lindsay.
Yes, and congratulations again.
President Ewing.
Yes, item approved, motion carries. We are holding on item D,
No problem.
Oh, I'm so glad.
so if you do have questions, let us know, but stepping stones, because of how it was presented, needs to be cleaned up and brought back. 13 personnel items, 13A approved for manager special initiatives position.
It is the recommendation of the administration of the Board of Education to authorize the superintendent or her designee to approve the manager of special initiatives position with a base salary of up to $80,000 to support the district African American Male Student Achievement Initiative and other related equity initiatives.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. Riddle. Second by Mr. McBride. Any comments or questions on the motion?
I actually have a couple of questions regarding the position.
Go ahead, Ms. Lindsay.
Who's going to be answering them?
Dr. Knowles coming
Thank
up.
you, Dr.
Probably can
Knoll.
help also.
And Ms. Fields.
And Ms. Fields.
Thank you, Dr. Knoll. So I just have a big picture question because I'm having a hard time coming to terms with this requested position, because from my understanding, the Black Male Initiative or the African American Male Initiative, depending on where we're finalizing that language, my understanding is that is a district-wide initiative. So to me, that would seem that we would need everybody on board of this initiative, not just one person managing the entire team. It should be the entire district. And if it's going to be the entire district, I would picture some sort of strategic plan would go with it, and where everybody is a stakeholder and partaking in it. So I'm just confused as to why we have this proposed.
Good evening, everyone. Jason Null, the Associate Superintendent. Good evening, President, Superintendent, members of the board, community, and colleagues. No doubt, the African American Male Initiative is going to be a collaborative process. There's not just going to be just one person leading that initiative. It's going to be a collaborative effort across ASAP, operations, our MCEL chapter is going to be instrumental in that process. Community partners are going to be instrumental in that process. The manager position will be the person that will take the lead on leading a lot of the work that's a part of that initiative, but it'll be a cross-collaborative effort across both divisions, multiple departments, et cetera. The same that with all of our equity initiatives, there's a lot of collaboration that goes into a lot of our equity, like our policy review process, for example. Those are all things that we do collaboratively across the district.
Okay, it feels like a very narrowly focused position, and I'm sure Ms. Fields could use an extra person in their department, but I don't know if this is the most appropriate use of our funds when it's just targeting those special initiatives.
So the goal would be obviously to launch the African American Male Initiative as we presented a couple of weeks ago, and then replicate the efforts that we put forth for other student groups. So kind of using our African American Male Initiative as our, I don't want to say pilot because it means different things to different people, but using that as kind of our springboard to other initiatives that will focus on other student groups that need due attention as well. So initially you'll see what's in the job descriptions. That person will be focusing a lot on the African American Male Initiative, and then once we have that initiative off the ground and running, they can be supporting some other initiatives as we look into other student groups. Not to say that those student groups aren't getting attention now, they are, but we're just putting a lot of effort into this as was a request from the board, what we've heard from the community, that this group really needs a lot of attention. So this position is going to solely focus on those efforts initially.
I have more, but you can go. No, it's tangential. We can go back to me. That's fine.
Okay, I just want to ask, what is the difference in this position and with our equity, are you a coordinator? Director. And so what is the difference? I mean, is this like a duplication?
No. So Tasia is the director of our equity initiatives in the district. Currently, she, besides, is the facilitator? A manager. She has an additional manager that supports some of the works in the schools, and we have the equity liaisons that are in the schools as well. So this individual would report directly to Tasia as part of her team, and directly to me as someone who works closely with Tasia. But the focus is going to be different. So Tasia focuses on all district-wide equity initiatives. Again, this person's really going to dig into the African American Male Achievement Plan and then some subsequent initiatives that will follow supporting different student groups.
Do you know how many African American students are in the district pre-K-12?
Yes, I believe we presented this a couple weeks ago. I think we had 2,000 total students, and 1,000, roughly half were male.
And will this position, will they be, I guess, strategizing from pre-K through 12? Or
any grade level we have African American males, we're going to have this person be a part of this initiative. The plan that we laid out spoke to all different grade levels: early childhood, middle school, high school. So yes, this person will be supporting grade levels across the district.
Okay, Ms. Lindsay, I'm done. Thank you.
From my understanding, they're just going through some of the things that the district has done over the years, and I don't have an exact date, but I'm sure somebody will have an exact date. But I believe it was during the pandemic, there was the National Equity Project that we did, and the schools at a base level, from what I understand, we're working on those pieces, but we haven't done like a district level component to that. So would this fall into that, or is that still under the DE&I team? I just feel that this is a very narrow specific for one piece when they could just be a part of the DE&I team, not under this, but helping across multiple things. Because you're saying future groups, we don't know what that looks like right now. We have a direct initiative right now. And if we fold them into DE&I generally as another manager, they have more flexibility, they have more capacity, they can make a larger impact than this singular focus. And if we're going to be mindful of the funds that this district is paying out, we want to make sure not only that our staff is supported, but we're maximizing their potential. So this seems a little bit too much of a strict lane that they're going to be operating in, and that brings me concern because this is a big piece.
Yeah, can I help? So our Black Male Initiative is a new initiative for our district, and there's a lot of pieces that need to be baked out. One is the steering committee, right? What is that candidate profile? An application process of people that will, so this manager is going to help pull all that together. You also mentioned, in a sense, a strategic plan, a roadmap for this. That's definitely part of this, creating those artifacts where we are creating a KPI dashboard sense strategic plan that's tied in so that we're looking at what we're doing, how we're doing, and those measures to see the success or where we need more supports, right? This is a new initiative, and it's going to need a lot of support that is intertwined throughout the district. So ensuring that the HR piece of the house is talking with the equity office and the schools and the academics and the literacy. I mean, it's going to be intertwined throughout departments. What Jason is mentioning is that when we talk about equity, I don't need to give anybody a lesson once again, but it's really giving those students what they need when they need it, right? And so right now we know that we have a crisis with our African American males. We believe that we will close that achievement opportunity gap, but once we do that, we still need to ensure that we have supports and that synergy and that data is still moving in a positive direction. But then what is that next student group that we need to support? I'm just going to throw one out. I'm not saying it is. It may be our newcomers. We may be looking at, we're getting so many newcomers now, we need to make a plan to ensure that we are moving them out of intensive care, right? And, providing them the supports. And so that is the logic behind this position, and why there may be some broad, stripes when we were painting this job description. I'm going to let Tasia speak to it also because it's well thought, and I think you should hear from her. But it is to give that flexibility. And if you look at the job description, it says other duties as, as assigned. So Tasia, can you please?
Yeah, and can I ask, I am, we are really right now talking in general, okay? We're talking in general, and as a board member, I want to know some of the specifics that we are planning on doing. Are we going to target African American boys in the classroom to teach them how to read? Are we going to teach them math? What exactly are we going to be doing, to make these students, what's the buzzword, to close the gap, the academic gap? What are we going to do? Talking in general, to me, with all due respect to everybody involved, it is, I'm not going to say it. Anyway, I don't want to hear talking in general, because we can talk in general for year over year over year over year, and we still see nothing. I want to know what exactly are we going to be doing to help the African American students? But as I said from the beginning of this, when it was brought up, that we also have the Hispanic males, that we need to be looking at too. And so I just want to know, what are we going to be doing?
I can help answer that. So, Ms. Hannah, you have a really great point, and we're definitely targeting literacy and math functions, all of that. However, when we presented our plan, we did say that there's some ambiguity there because we did not want to create a plan for our male students without their input, their family's input, but also community input. And so there's a number of surveys that's going to go out. I don't want to use the word town halls because this is going to look very different, where we're actually engaging with staff, students, community members, community organizations to help us build this plan. And that was something we were very specific on, stating that we were not once again going to say, hey, we have the prescription for you, though we know what are some best practices, we know what research states, but instead we needed to hear, and someone in a sense checked me on this, like, you may think that everyone the mentoring piece, but my kid may not need mentoring, nor do I want you to mentor them. So what does that look like? And we are not going to know until those surveys go out. Our steering committee, who is going to be leading a lot of this work, has a voice at the table and a thumbprint on the plan. So I will tell you, the ambiguity is there for a reason, because we do not want to create a plan that is done to someone or done for somebody, but we want their valued inputs and their thumbprint on this plan too. So it is a plan that is created by the community and all of us together to support our African American male students within the district.
And thank you, Superintendent. And I'm just going to, as you were talking, I kept flashing back to a news broadcast that I saw. And it was teachers during the summer having sessions with black children, and they were just literally focused on teaching reading. And the amazing thing was that the little boy that participated, he was so excited to know how to read. And I think all the initiatives, doing activities, all that, our focus should be on literacy. Literacy, and once they accomplish literacy, things will fall into place for the students.
We're in complete agreement with you, Ms. Hannah. Completely, we're in complete agreement with you.
Go ahead, Mr. McBride.
Oh, I thought Ms. Fields was going to talk.
Oh, I don't. Did you have a question or something you wanted to respond, or did you want to hear back from Mr. McBride?
The only thing I would add to that, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tasia Fields, Director of Equity and Inclusion. Ms. Hannah, you're absolutely right. The only thing that I would add to that, yes, we need to make sure that our students, especially our African American males, are reading, right? But there's an access piece that we cannot forget. Remember, we talked about the culturally responsiveness. That's why it's so important that we're starting with our teachers in that training. It doesn't matter. We can put all the books in front of you, have all of the things, the best teachers, but if they are not able to culturally connect with our black boys and girls, that's where the disconnect is happening, okay? So this initiative and us being really intentional and specific around really getting to the root of what our students of color need, that's what this will support, so.
Okay.
I wanted to hear from Mr. McBride, and then I want Ms. Lindsay to be able to.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to have to have
we can
another conversation.
Yes, and so in the plan, it will be explicit, right? We will roll it out. We'll have a timeline. We'll have a communication plan of events, what you can expect to happen, the specific task, and how we are going to hold people accountable to that. Because accountability is a big piece of that.
Mr. McBride.
Yeah, you know, I've been listening to everybody. I'm that little black boy y'all talking about. And I look at our security over there. I look at James in the doorway. He's that little black boy we're talking about. They're doing pretty good. I don't know, maybe because your parents raised you right. But I want to say this. Brother Blanks came up to this podium, gave us something to work with. Anthony McIntosh came up after him. He gave us something to work with. I was listening to both of them brothers. You can't learn or read if you walk in the hallways all day long. Why are you doing that? There's got to be a reason. You can't learn if you fighting all day long. There's got to be a reason. Ray talked about that.
You can't read.
Clyde McElmore, Black Lives Matter, came in talking about PS. If you got drama going on at home and before you get to the school, you're not going to learn nothing. So when you start bringing staff in here, dealing with what you start at, with mentoring our black boys, you got to start there first with the discipline piece. I would tell you any time of the day when your discipline is bad, you have no morals and no values. When you start there, you're going to act up and you're going to do just what we see happens every day. Kids not learning. So academically, you're going to come up short. You need to start working on that first when you start bringing staff in. And number one, we just can't do it. Once again, they got parents. You need to start working with them first. Because right now, just when I go to the high school, a kid can, I guess you got the hero system, it's called. Kids understand the hero. They slick enough to know that, hey, the hero system, I ain't got to go to class. All I got to do is get a line and get a pass.
Right.
They slick enough to know that. I know that because I was over there standing in line my own self, and they one turn around and got behind me, watching the clock. But so they're intelligent enough to know how to do that, and they're intelligent enough to know how to read and write. If they get in the classroom and sit down and do it, but if you're not in the classroom reading and writing, you academically at the end of the year you gonna come up short. So I would say start with the parents. And at the same time, when you start talking about getting them right, start with discipline first. And we hear it all the time. Even Ms. Vukovich, she been talking about that 3 months ago. Kids acting up. And then when we're talking about the teachers, they probably scared of the kids. To be honest with you, I'm just saying they probably scared of the kids. I would be too if I did understand the kid, their behavior. I probably would be too. So with that said, all of that, I say that brother back there in the corner and Brother Blanks, when they make sure you put them on your team, because they understand, because they probably came from the same place those kids came from, like I did.
As did I.
Thank you. I'm going to go to Ms. Gonzalez, and then I'm coming back down that way, Ms. Lindsay. I apologize.
No, you're fine.
Ms. Gonzalez.
I emailed some of my questions, and I think I'll cut up my comments into an affirmation, right? Some questions that I think allude to some of what has been mentioned and what we're kind of maybe trying to see more. I don't know if necessarily from the job description or from the case for this position right now. And then my personal take on this request, okay? I think it's a good thing, and it's been requested by the community that this initiative have resources, right? And we've kind of been throwing everything, right? And some of it has stuck, some of it hasn't. And what I hear with this request is that you need a designated person on the team that can highly focus in on the data and prioritize this initiative, which I think is okay. I am not opposed to that. My concern is, my question was, I actually appreciate that it's narrow and focused because we haven't found a solution that kind of pushes the lever the way that we've wanted for decades now, even in District 60. So I don't mind that it's narrow and focused, but I don't know, and my first question, I don't know how this position supplements the work in DEI. So can you answer that first? How will it be supplemental to what we're trying to do right now?
This position or the initiative? Well,
The
this
position.
the position being housed within my department will definitely supplement the DEI work that we're doing. And so, and like you said, the narrow focus around this particular initiative, in addition to supporting all of the equity work, right? And so when it comes to creating that dashboard and being able to clearly lift inequities and see them in the different areas of our district, that person will support all of our initiatives coming from the department.
I want to know what the initiatives are.
Right. So to that point, because I agree with Ms. Hannah, I guess my concern is I don't want it, and this is me, right? My personal philosophy. I don't think that I envision, and this is where your guys' team and the case for the position comes into play. I don't envision the person just being about the data, right? And I think that that's what we're hearing. We want, and then my question is, well, how does this person collaborate within the building? Or is it that they're tracking all of our students, our black male students, and seeing it from, A to B, that they're getting, better grades, better attendance, whatever?
Right. No, not at all. I mean, the data piece is important, but that's not, we all do that, right?
Right.
That's something that we all have to do on a consistent basis. So this person by no means will be just focused on this particular piece. Right now, this person is needed to support LIFT, the implementation, the startup of this initiative. But I do have here, maybe this will help to kind of shed some light. Keep talking about initiatives, so like what exactly do we mean? Of course. So what I'm passing out now, this is our WPS equity framework, and this is basically the big initiative for the district. So in this framework, you can see there are 4 quadrants. One of them is centering student voice. The other one is family and community engagement. The one below that, culturally responsive schools, equitable policies and resources. So these are our major initiatives when it comes to equity work in this district, right? That centering student voice piece is huge. The family and community engagement, you're alluding to parents need support. That's one thing that we hear all the time. Increasing that engagement, what does that really mean? Empowering our parents, building that culturally responsive school piece, right? We're talking about discipline, we're talking about working with our teachers, and making sure that we are represented, our students are represented in everything that we do. The equitable policies and resources, you all already know about the policy work that we started. So this is the big initiative to encompass the equity work here, right? And if you see what's around it, that racial equity lens. And so what am I talking about when I say racial equity lens? That means approaching this work from a corrective justice standpoint, right? So really lifting those marginalized student groups, those students that have been oppressed. So when we speak about African American males, and we all can say our black boys are suffering, so this is us drilling into that. We
And
can't
what you gonna do? What are you gonna do?
So wait, can I jump in?
Yes.
I think part of the what you're going to do comes from the fact is that we said we didn't want to come to the community with a solution.
Right.
Now we're saying, no, I want you to detail the solution, so then the community has no voice in what it is that they're going to do. I don't want to give my comments yet because I do want to both hear from Ms. Gonzalez to finish, and I want to allow Ms. Lensing to finish. And I'm not trying to cut you off, Ms. Hannah, but I want to make sure we hear from all the board members.
No, I understand. And I just want to say, teach the kids to read.
We got you. We
And
love it, and that's going to be a major
we
part
are.
of it. If we got to say that explicitly, reading is going to be a top priority, is because it's going to be one of the metrics that has to be monitored. When we talk about success, there cannot be success on the SAT or the PSAT or on any of those issues without focusing on reading. So if you can explicitly state for Ms. Hannah and for the community that reading would be a major focus and proponent of
and
this
so
initiative.
one thing that I don't want to misconstrue, just because we have this initiative, we are not starting from right here. We can't afford to do that. As a district, we have our high school transformation plan, our curriculum mapping, our middle school redesign, the science of reading. All of these are major initiatives and work that is already started here in the district, right? We're already starting this work and having the conversation. So what we're doing now is we're going to be more detailed. We're going to get a little bit granular. We're going to be more specific in what that looks like for this specific student group. And we're not going to stop there. We're going to keep, doing that. So
So I don't know if it was your question answered, or do we need, because I jumped in to interrupt, and I know I'm trying to focus the conversation,
Yeah,
but we can't actually get to, because I actually want to go where part of what I think Ms. Lindsay was asking related to the actual job description
Right.
and what was listed here. But go ahead, Ms. Gonzalez.
Yeah, no, I think the more we continue the conversation, I think some of my questions will be clarified. But the other thing I wanted to raise, and me thinking about this, is I don't want that person to feel like, going into the position, it's broad strokes, and I don't want it to change from year to year. Like this year is the Black Male Initiative, and the next year it's the Newcomer Initiative, and then there's no continuity, right? Because the work doesn't finish. That's unrealistic, even for this particular group. So that's kind of why I want to know more about the granular. So.
And I can help with that, right?
Yeah.
So I don't foresee that this would change from year to year. But if we're talking about equity and not equality, then that's exactly what should happen. There should be a cycle of improvement that we follow for our lowest student group. That doesn't mean that that student group that we're focusing on now just falls off and there's no supports. We're just like,
Right.
okay, you're good.
I
We'll
think
talk to
that's
you
what
later,
my
right?
fear is, though.
That's not what we're saying. Those supports would still be there. We'd still be monitoring them. We'd still be following the KPIs, we still be adjusting, etc. But at some point, that next subgroup now needs to come out of ICU, and there needs to be an intentional focus on that. And what does that look like? So no, it doesn't mean pulling all the resources, pulling all the monies. But the truth of the matter is, as we get better at doing this work together, some of those resources may look differently, will evolve, right? So what does that look like? I don't have that answer now, and I think sometimes we are, it's okay to say we don't have the answers right now.
Right.
And we're gonna figure this out together, and I believe we said that when we presented, and that is what the board president's saying. I would not feel comfortable for us to prepare a plan for anyone that has not been engaged or even gotten a student perspective or the teacher perspective on this, and that's where we're at in this. So if that makes sense, I hope it does.
Okay.
Ms. Lindsay.
Superintendent, when you were speaking before, and then we had a couple of other questions, you brought up the DE&I department speaking with HR, right, and a couple of other departments. The way the structure is now, we have the board, the superintendent, we got legal doing their great thing over here, and then we have the rest of the chain of the command, right? And so based on the structure and based on this job description, they would directly report to Ms. Fields and then indirectly report to Dr. Nault. So with chain of commands, there comes a sense of authority and a sense of importance. And to me, keeping the initiative at the district high administration level sends the message that this is important. People will need to comply to the initiatives, right, that we set forth, and there will be definite accountability. When you bury such an, and I don't mean any negative terms, but maybe there's a better word for it, and I apologize if that's not the word I'm pulling right now.
When you delegate it down.
Thank you. That's much more appropriate. I appreciate that. When you delegate it down, it doesn't give the same sense of urgency. It doesn't give it the same sense of weight. It will give people some sort of internal feeling of, well, this isn't coming from top leadership, so maybe I don't need to fully comply, right? So if we're not moving DE&I to where they are at a level where they can help support across the district at an upper admin level, I don't see this being as successful as it can possibly be. And I know that's a whole organization restructuring possibly, but DE&I needs to be a through line through the entire district. It does need to be in HR, in our hiring process, in our conversations. It does need to be involved in contract considerations when we're pulling in third parties, and there's a lot of people coming to the podium talking about, well, if I go to this third party, this is my salary. If I do it here in the district, it's this salary, right? These conversations are so very important that I agree, you need another team member. I don't like that this is so narrowed. The other duties assigned is a slippery slope. It's a very slippery slope. But I don't see a problem of having another manager under you, and their first task coming in is to focus this. If this is an other duties assigned, this is their primary focus. And with your team, I don't think that would cause an issue to say, all right, team, our new manager is going to focus on this because this is high priority. They're fresh into the district. They don't have other things. But you guys have been working on so many great things as it is. That they're going to be absorbing and duplicating a lot of the work, right? And so by giving this a different title, a different lane that they're in, that doesn't speak to me for collaboration purposes. I have concerns that keeping it at this level and not an upper administration level gives a message or a connotation that we're not intending. So those are just my personal concerns. So if there's aspects that you want to address, that's fine. But I just want to be transparent where I'm coming from.
Yeah, and I can see where you're coming from on that. And I just want to chime in. So the Black Mill Initiative is not only this manager's job responsibility. It is Dr. Nault's responsibility. It's Teresa Placencia's responsibility. It is LeBaron Moulton's responsibility. It's Dr. Cesario's. It is going to be a stream of work that we look at when we're holding our either house meetings, meaning operation side of the house, or the academic or the cross meetings, right? So this is everybody's job. This is our initial step because we need to get out surveys. We need to hold, I'm going to just call it right now, town halls. I know we're changing that name. Helping us put our steering committee together, vet those applications. And so there is a need for the manager position in the view that we have on how this would rolled out. That does not mean that once we get all this together, we may come back to the board and say, hey, we now know that we need another position, and this is why. After we've engaged our community, our students, our staff, after the steering committee is seated, there may be a lot of new things coming, but right now we're not at that point. We need a manager right now, and that does not take the efficacy of the initiative. It doesn't make that initiative only lie in Tasia's department. It's going to be interwoven throughout all departments. So, but right now the ask is for the manager of this position so that we can start getting out these surveys, so we can start getting these town halls on the books, so we can start sending out having our application process and starting vetting the applications for our steering committee that will be seated, that will help oversee this initiative.
And I have one last question.
Go ahead, Ms. Anna, and then I got comments.
Is this position going to, now it says to support the district's African American Male Student Achievement Initiative. So do we have to support means to support the initiative? And I guess what I'm getting at is, what type of person are you looking for?
Well, and also in there it says they need to implement it.
Yeah, and someone that's going to implement this position.
Right.
You know, I mean, what type of person are you looking for?
Yeah, so
Because anybody can't just get up there and
You're absolutely
and talk
right.
about something that they don't know.
I think it would be beneficial to have a person that has an education background, since we're working in schools. Someone that can speak to curriculum would be helpful, in addition to someone that has some previous experience in DEI work. Just to get back to your statement and your question.
What about someone experienced in working with African American males?
Yes, all of that. But to answer your question about, does this position belong within this department? This is absolutely where it belongs. Like this is equity work. But you did mention a good point, and if I could just, be honest, there are some barriers within our institution and how this department is structured that does affect the success of our implementations. And I know that as fact, right? The department is currently positioned 2 levels below cabinet level, so it is a barrier in mandating things, holding people accountable. So all of those things do affect the implementation. So you mentioned that. So we have to consider that as well.
That's what happened when you fracture an organization.
Well, my
But-
question, Ms. Sanders said something that really gets on with me. What kind of person are you really looking for? Now, I'm going to say this. Just like they can look at statistics with little black boys and determine if they're going to go to the penitentiary or not, they see something. What they see, I see too, but when I see that, what do I do about it?
So I'm going to ask the board if you can refer to the job description. That is the type of person that we're looking for.
Right.
You do not need a type 75, but it's not even called that anymore. You don't need the certification for, what is it, the Pell now? Is it, what's the correct?
Professional education.
Yeah, right.
Right.
The name's changed since I've been in this position a long time. You don't need that type of certification, but if you look at the job description, it will definitely tell you the type of individual that we are trying to attract, and we ask everyone to please apply.
So,
Board President?
Can I apply?
Board
I
President?
got a couple. Not if you step down from the board, so you can apply. But if you get the job, you can't actually do it unless you step down. I'm gonna go to you, Mr. Riddle, because I want to hear from you because you didn't speak, and then I've really been holding my tongue. Go ahead, Mr. Riddle.
Mine is going to be very brief. I really appreciate all the concern that our board has presented. This is an issue, as we've heard, that has been mentioned many, many times from our community. It's a focus that we have now targeted. I think, and I would recommend board members to vote on this position because we're being asked by the administration. This is an important position. We saw the plan that the superintendent and the committee developed, but it isn't going to happen unless we have a person there to work with it and get it going. It's something new. I think I'd encourage all of us to go ahead and approve this position so that we can get this program going. It's going to take a lot of work. It's going to take collaboration with our community, with all the stakeholders. It's a multifaceted program we're looking at. It's not just academic. It's not social emotional. It's as Mr. McBride was saying. It's targeting certain population, their families, with all of the engagement that has to take place. It's going to be different for different students. So we need a person in this capacity. So I think it's worthwhile. I'm going to accept the recommendation and call for a vote once the board president makes his final comments. Thank you.
And my comments will be, if not brief, I'll try it because I do want to draw out. I feel like your major concerns, Ms. Lindsay, are related to title. So it's not that you are opposed necessarily to the position, but that you would like the position to hold a little bit more authority. Superintendent, what is it that we can do in which through Taja's department, Ms. Fields' department and Dr. Knauss' department in order, or even how can we empower this position so that when they are contacting schools or doing this work, that they are met? Because I understand what Ms. Fields is saying, and even in her work, is if you have a principal who just simply is refusing, and I'm not saying that they are, you have individuals that are refusing to engage with the DEI work that is happening, that can be an issue. And so I don't want to just state that what Ms. Lindsay is bringing up is not it's not a crazy thing. And I think it makes sense.
hasn't been the first time that that's been reiterated.
So it's definitely onboarding our staff to the initiative, right? So what does that onboarding for the principals look like as far as detailing what is the Black Male Initiative, the onboarding of the DLT, setting those expectations for our principals, our DLT. I'm also use that. I'm going to use all administrators, including our staff, our teachers. What does that training look like? So as we've been discussing this, we've been talking about what does onboarding for the initiative look like at each of those levels, all the way down through safety, through operations. I mean, everyone needs to be on board and understand why this initiative is important, what the expectations are, what supports that they will receive in order to ensure that the initiative is successful. And then once again, the cycle of improvement, just that accountability piece to just ensure that when we say we're doing something, we're actually doing it. So to me, that's that onboarding piece and setting those clear expectations initially. On the forefront is what I wanted to say.
And given that information, because I understand too, and share the concern, I think manager gives a lot more flexibility sometimes with even the type of individual that you may look to employ, where coordinators will require Pell, directors and above would also require those special licensures, where I think the superintendent's goal was to kind of keep it as broad. One thing that I always, our favorite thing, Ms. Polk, unfunded mandates. Right? And so what we've done is we have requested a hyper-intensive focus on this specific student group, not into what you acknowledge. This department is already, in my opinion, exceeding capacity. They are already punching above their weight. And so to give them an unfunded mandate without the manpower to actually support the initiative, something as simple scheduling the meetings, making sure, because if she's in the equity policy committee, she shouldn't be expected to be at the committee that is responsible for the male student achievement. So I think what you guys are really saying is in order to do this initiative, you need the additional body of support, is because something as simple as scheduling the meetings, making sure that we stay on track, meeting with the principals and moving forward with the KPIs is difficult given the workload and the streams of work that are already carried by all of the individuals involved. Is that an accurate statement?
Yes, that's accurate.
And so for me, I think this is one of the opportunities is somebody has to, if we don't say own the work, has to be responsible for helping to move the work forward, right? Is Brandon, if I'm on the committee and any of our committee members, they're unpaid positions. And so who is carrying that work? And so if it's a manager right now, I believe I can support this. I think we have to have somebody that is in there, because right now, even based on the own deadline that was presented, as Ms. Briscoe pointed out, we're already behind, right? And so some of the work that we want to start to see happening, I think if we get too far down the line and then we try and hire somebody, that it's just not as collaborative. So my opinion is, I understand completely, is we actually, at my employer, changed the DE&I rep from a manager, and that became a director level, and then it was a cabinet position that reported directly to the CEO, right? And so I think superintendent, that may have been something that we talked about initially. If this is a board initiative, it's not that we don't think that Tasia is 100%, Ms. Fields is 100% effective and capable of doing it. Is it this person can be a manager, but a manager that reports directly to yourself, or that Ms. Fields, I don't know. I don't want to get into, I think the concern has been put on the table, and the concern is a valid one that will require some strategy on the superintendent administration's part to figure out how that's implemented. And I'll pause there before my final comments.
So maybe this is just me being new to the board, right? So maybe we just provide some clarification. If we want it to essentially have the weight, right? And because I do agree, I was not trying to imply that this position should not be part of DE&I. This is exactly why we have so many DE&I initiatives, nationally, globally too.
Yeah.
Right? So that wasn't my implication at all. My concern is that in the overall structure of the district, being under Dr. Nault in that level, that creates more hurdles for you to get the work done. So when it comes to looking at the positions so that it is of a cabinet level, it is part of the executive team to get things done, and it sends the message that Waukegan takes DE&I seriously. Waukegan values diversity, equity, and inclusion. What does it look like to restructure, to move that to, you were saying, a cabinet position?
Yeah, and I think that's part of, so what we have right now is I have an individual, Mr. Riddle, who has called for the vote after my comments.
Oh, sorry.
No, that's, I want to just, from a procedural point, which means I have to take the vote, right? Unless Mr. Riddle withdrew it, or board can vote it yes, board can vote it down. But just, I want to put that out there procedurally, that is what would happen unless anybody withdraws their motions. The reason that we're kind of hesitant to, and I'm being transparent, but why we don't want to have this conversation in the public is because there are some other personnel implications in which we would be raising something to a level that I think even when we're talking about the DE&I piece, may be unintentionally, have some unintended consequences to that. And what I mean by that is, I guess what I can say is that Dr. Nault, you are cabinet level, correct?
Yes.
So
Can I say something to clarify what we're trying to say? Taking this initiative from the superintendent level and making it a priority for the manager is, I think, what our concern is. Does that make more sense? Because it's our goal for you, and then
it was a goal last year, so
Right.
the goal is over. We don't have a new goal. However, we're still moving this, and I'm going to say this with, please know this is coming from a really good place. So I hope it lands the way I'm hoping it does. So the organizational structure really does follow under the purview of the superintendent. So I would ask that we're not sitting here adding more people to my cabinet or taking people from my cabinet, because there's an ebb and flow on how we do the work. And Tasia, you know, I'm completely in awe of the work you do, and I know you do a lot of work. I don't know if that's the conversation for right here, but that can be something we talk about when we set goals. Number two is, right now, I believe I stated, we may come back for more positions. We need this manager position right now because we have a lot of things that we need to get moving on. We need to get moving on the survey. We need to get moving on, once again, I'm going to call them the town halls for inputs. We need to get moving on interviewing our students that just returned. So there's a lot of work that is, for me, manager level work. That does not mean at some point, as the steering committee comes and after we see the results of the surveys and our interviews, et cetera, that we're like, hey, listen, we need 2 more people. I'm not saying we're not going to come back. I don't want to ask for that now because I don't have that baked out now. But what I do have baked out right now is that we do need the manager position so that we're able to get a lot of those other things launched, the surveys, assessment, you know. I'm going to be presenting on a program to you next month that would fall under here also, but would be so you're going to be seeing a lot more come forward. And I would hope that we would have another goal set on this, because I don't think it should just be the 1 year and then it drops. But what does that goal look like? I mean, that's a discussion that we'll have.
I'm looking for results.
And I think that's 100%. So my final comments, and then Rick call for the vote, is you said something, Ms. Hannah, and it reminded me very briefly of Dave Chappelle. So he did the Def Comedy Jam special, and he said, well, when they called me, you know, I said, whatever you need me to do. But I didn't know that the one thing that they wanted me to do was read. He then goes on a 10-minute, comedy bit. Everybody is laughing, hilarious. And he ends it with, well, what I'm trying to say is I go through a lot of lengths to avoid having to read in public. So to your point, Mr. McBride, I think some of the behavior that we see is a direct result of the lack of academic performance that our students have. And so we have to do a both and. We have to focus, and I think in the plan, that was the frustration, is the data showed us that we had a tier 1 problem, which we know. The data showed us that our students have not been succeeding academically. But to Ms. Hannah's point, there were no solutions which involved an explicit academic solution. It was, what it was interpreted as was, we just want to give them mentors. So I think mentorship is just a small part. But all of those things that have to happen, there has to be somebody to do it. And I'm going to advocate for the rest of the team is, I don't know who has the capacity. If they did, right, they've been looking at this data set, to Mr. McBride's point, for years, but we haven't put the intentional focus behind it. So,
classrooms and all the kids.
Go ahead, Mr. Riddle called the question, so roll call vote.
Mr. McBride.
Yes, I just want to say, Tasia, this what you got on this sheet. If you can implement this, that'll solve the problem.
I'm trying. That's the plan.
Right.
Ms. Gonzalez.
Yes.
Mr. Riddle.
Yes.
Ms. Hannah.
I want this position, but I just see, and I'm just being transparent for me. It's just another layer of bureaucracy. And, I mean, we keep adding people to do things, and unfortunately, it's not filtering down to the children. And so, I'm gonna pass on this.
Thank you.
Ms. Lansing.
I know you need the people. I don't agree with how it's being approached, right? Had it been another manager to your team where their primary focus coming in was this, and then, well, I've already said it. So for that reason, I'm going to vote no. I think you need another person. I can't agree with this type of approach.
President Ewing.
Yes, item approved, motion carries. I appreciate the debate. Item 13B, personnel for 8/22/23.
It is the recommendation that the Board of Education accept the administration's recommendation to approve the appointments, retirement extensions, and accept the resignations as found on schedules F1002, L949, and G660.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. Riddle.
Second.
Second by Ms. Gonzalez. Any comments or questions on the motion? Roll call vote, please.
Mr. McBride.
Yes.
Ms. Gonzalez.
Yes.
Mr. Riddle.
Yes.
Ms. Hannah.
Yes.
Ms. Lansing.
Yes.
President Ewing.
Yes, item approved, motion carries. There are 4 administrative appointments that we'd like to highlight at this time.
At this time, I'd like to introduce Mr. David Villalobos, who previously served as a substitute teacher. He will now serve as the manager of financial accountability with a starting salary of $78,000. Congratulations, Mr. Villalobos.
David, congratulations.
We paying you, you don't want to shake our hand?
Yeah.
Congratulations.
No, unfortunately, no. Thank you, Mr. Villalobos.
Our next appointee will be Ms. Sylvia Roldan, who previously served as a bilingual tutor at the Brookside campus. She will now serve as a bilingual manager of family support services at Lincoln Center with a starting salary of $59,711.53. Congratulations, Ms. Roldan.
Congratulations.
Our next appointee will be Eric Farfan, who previously served as a bilingual teacher in District 6, Zion. He will now serve as a bilingual manager, Family Support Services, with a starting salary of $59,711.53. Is Mr. Farfan here today? Okay, well, congratulations. Our next appointee will be Miss Bertha Campos, who previously served as the EL coordinator at Lincoln Center. She will now serve as the assistant director of EL with a starting salary of $110,000. Congratulations, Dr. Campos.
Awesome. All right, thank you to all of those appointments. And with that, we have 16A, which is the ratification of the second processing of August 2023 board bills, manual check request payments, Old National Bank insurance payments for the period of August 2023 through August 15, 2023.
It is the recommendation of the administration that the Board of Education ratify the second August 2023 processing of board bills, manual check request payments, and Old National Bank insurance payments for the period of August 2nd, 2023 through August 15, 2023. The accounts payable board payments for the period of August 2nd, 2023 through August 15, 2023 total $5,182,350.92. The manual check request payments for the period of August 2nd, 2023 through August 15, 2023 total $2,131,091.07. The Old National Bank insurance payments for the period of August 2nd, 2023 through August 15, 2023 total $0.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. Riddle.
Second.
Second by Ms. Hannah. Any comments or questions on the motion?
I just wanna I'm gonna keep saying it. We just have to be mindful of our spending, and we gotta kind of make sure that our house is not overspending monies that we think we have, but we really don't have. Because I look at the bills and expenditures and stuff, and I have concerns. That's it.
Thank you, Ms. Hannah. Roll call.
Mr. McBride.
Yes.
Ms. Gonzalez.
Yes.
Mr. Riddle.
Yes.
Ms. Hannah.
Yes.
Ms. Lindsay.
Yes.
President Ewing.
Yes, item approved, motion carries. Committee reports, they're just started back. I am waiting for a couple board members for committee assignments. So if you would like those, I need those ASAP because I plan on making appointments at our first meeting in September. I'm going to ask the whole delegates report as it's 8:49. Then we got C, superintendent's report.
At this time, our superintendent report is going to be focused on our wraparound center that will be located downtown Waukegan. I'm going to ask our director of wraparound services, Mrs. Bridget Donson, to walk us through the presentation. And what you're going to see is what is the philosophy around a wraparound center nationally and what it will look like here, the assessment that will be completed to find out the areas that our community needs support in, the RFP process on how we will be taking, I'm going to say, applications for a variety of vendors on those specific areas that we will be concentrating on as a wraparound center. And of course, this wraparound center is scheduled to open sometime in November, depending on construction at 214. So at this time, Ms. Dotson, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, well, thank you. That was a wonderful summary. So good evening, everyone, Board of Education, Superintendent, colleagues, and community. Hi, Ms. Hannah. I'm Bridget Dodson. As the superintendent just stated, I am the director of Wraparound Center Services. So, and I'm pleased to be here tonight to give you a high-level overview of nationally what wraparound is and what wraparound services will look like here in Waukegan. Next slide. Okay, that's our table of contents. Again, we go through the national definition, principles, and concept of wraparound so that it's not a District 60 thing, it is a national philosophy and set of principles and process. And then we're going to go through what our Waukegan Wraparound Center will look like and then the timeline of events. So what is wraparound? According to the National Wraparound Initiative, it is a service delivery model. Next slide, please. Thank you. It is a service delivery model that is comprehensive, that is holistic, that is family and youth driven to respond to those with significant mental health and behavioral challenges. The wraparound process also is anyone who experiences the wraparound process, they're supported by a team of professionals. They lead the work in terms of identifying what their needs and barriers are, and supported again by a team of professionals. And it's an individualized plan based on their strengths and their skill set. Next slide, please. This is an illustration of what anyone who receives wraparound, this is what they will experience. They are at the center. The items, whether it's family and friends, Department of Health, school, juvenile justice, those are not exact things, but it represents the teams of professionals, the services, the supports that will surround that family. And in that center box is also the facilitator, which would be the personnel of wraparound, either myself and that of the manager. The 10 principles, these define the philosophy of wraparound as well as guide all the actions. So we start with the family values and choice. Again, family driven, youth driven, child driven. They have a huge role in the wraparound process. They are telling us what the barriers are to them achieving those goals. So they lead the work. They help to determine their team, which is the next principle, the team-based. We want to include those natural supports, which is the third principle. And that would mean not just their friends and family, but any intergovernmental agency or support that they have relationships with that knows this family, that's committed to the family, will be a part of that team. They have a choice in this matter. And then I'm going to look at my own slide because even my glasses aren't working. That's so far away. So the natural supports, collaboration, key and essential to a wraparound process. That's the whole point, is that we're coordinating this together, working on this care plan for the individual or family. Culturally competent, that is identifying what's important, what's the beliefs, the values, the traditions of any family, and then working with that family in respect of those traditions and those values. This improves the outcomes. This is what the data also demonstrates and has showed, that when you respect where a person comes from, who a person is, what they believe in, and you work around that, with that, and we talk about cultural competency all the time. That's part of the principles. So strength-based, again, identifying the skills and the assets of the individual as opposed to us telling them what their problems are, what their needs are, and then maximizing that, devising plans around those assets. Unconditional care, we don't stop when we meet a challenge. And there was a quote in some of the research that I've done, and it says that the people don't fail, the plan fails. So if we're not seeing progress, then we need to either really look at the plan and pivot or add something different. But we don't just give up on a family. There's enough of that. Outcomes based. A lot, we talk about district-wide, about monitoring and accountability. And I'm going to get into that later about implementation and fidelity. National wraparound is huge in terms of high fidelity. So we're going to be tracking what our families are doing, incremental. Even after they transition and they no longer need said services, we're still going to track them for a while just to see that everything, there's stability and there's, you know, those skills that they've learned that they're able to continue to apply to their lives. Community-based. Again, this is a community. And so we're going to utilize the services here. We want to keep our children, our adolescents in district, in the city of Waukegan, less hospitalization. Again, these are positive outcomes for wraparound in terms of it saves money because we're not hospitalizing as much. We're not sending them to alternative placements as much. So this is all data that supports the work of wraparound. Next slide, please. 4 phases of wraparound. So again, this is the national under the NWI, which is National Wraparound Initiative. These 4 phases, this demonstrates what each individual and or family will go through. Phase 1 is the engagement piece. That's the initial meeting with any family member or any individual. Again, we start with them, this is baseline. They tell us what their needs are. So we orient them to the wraparound process. We have that build trust, develop a rapport, and so we begin to work. Everyone's in agreement. We identify team members, again, listening to the family first. It goes into phase 2, the initial plan development. Here's where we begin to do the work because we've had our initial meeting. When we sit down with the family, we've identified who the team members are. Everyone understands the process. There's commitments made, and we develop that individual and customized plan. Next slide, please. Thank you. Implementation of wraparound plan. The plan is now at work. Everyone understands in terms of our partners, service providers, and it's overseen by the wraparound staff, myself, and or the manager. And so we work through the plan. Transition. Again, this is when the family has met their goal or the individual has met their goal, and we begin to wean them out. It's just like if we're in specific programming, whether it be DL or something else, as they have mastered, we begin to wean out. And then there's that follow-up piece. There's also tracking and monitoring. We talk often, and many years I've heard it, about that accountability piece. So, and as it says that the director and the manager will be responsible for guiding, monitoring, and tracking the work that we're doing with our families. Next slide. Fidelity of implementation. Here's been a sticking point, and so what this slide is talking about is an assessment tool. What it is with the NWI, National Wraparound Initiative. I'm trying to not just use the acronym. So here's an objective way of looking at the site if we do this, and definitely I'm betting it, and I'm thinking that this will be our best way to have that accountability. Here's why. 2 reasons, mainly for me, who's very passionate about this project, is not only is it to ensure that we're providing quality service, but sustainability. So if we are being monitored by NWI with this RapStar, then we're going in the right direction. We're ensuring that we are servicing our community as we should with quality, and we're looking for sustainability. So as long as we are doing what we need to do in the way that we need to do it, we continue to move forward, and then there's continuity. Anytime you deal with mental health, you must have continuity. So this will aid us in that, it aid us in doing what we say that we want to do, and that is to support the community long term. So it gives us a snapshot, and it evaluates the sites, those that are doing wraparound. Next slide, please. Okay, we get to the meat of it. Waukegan Wraparound Center Services. So the previous slides were about the national. Now what will it look like here in Waukegan? So as we've talked about over time, that this is a one-stop shop, and I want to dispel any questions or concerns because I hear it. This is a one-stop shop location for our students, our families, and community to receive services. We have identified tentative areas of need. That is the mental health, social emotional, sexual abuse, juvenile justice services, legal aid, and substance abuse.
You want to wait till the end and write it down?
I do not.
Okay, go ahead.
Housing.
Yeah, that's why I say wait till the end.
Okay.
So we can go through it.
We're going to get to that.
Housing should be included in here because many of those things that you just identified, there's a lack of housing in Waukegan for our students and our families. And I was wondering, I was trying to look through the presentation to see if that was in there.
Okay.
And it's not. And all those things, they gonna go by the wayside if there's no stability.
Okay,
in
so
housing.
I'll speak to that.
Okay.
So again, what it says here, these are anticipated. So this is why we're going to do a needs assessment. What the needs assessment is going to give us definitive information. So if we definitely see that housing is an area, and I do not doubt what you say, I've been in the district 8 years, and I certainly know that as a coordinator of social work, that that is a concern and a challenge and a barrier for many. So the needs assessment will give us these definitive information as to what's truly impacting our community, our students and our families. So this is not an exclusive area, it's anticipated. So in doing even the proposal, we had to identify based on the metrics that was used, and this is what came up. So it's not exclusive. And so we definitely, this is an open-ended process right now.
Thank you. Then I want to remind the board to please hold questions till the end of the presentation.
Okay, so in the wraparound center, in terms of the functioning as well, it's suited right now to have 7 suites where individual and or group support will be provided with at least 7 there. That does not limit our ability to have partners within the community. Again, I talk about long-term, I talk about sustainability. So I am not looking to the 7 suites at 214 being the extent of our partnership. My long-term goals is to have that of all of the city and the county of Lake. So, but again, we stick with the same principle in that if there is an organization or entity that has a service that one of my families will need, and where they're not housed at 214, they can still have that service. However, the coordination, meaning that they don't have to go to that place to sign up, to see what they have, am I eligible, do I meet the criteria, we will do that at 214. So when they show up at a place that's outside of the 7 suites that we have, it's already done. I'm going to get the service and support, and that's that. Okay. There's a reception area. Position of the secretary will be forthcoming sometime next month, where our families, our individuals will come in by appointment. There's a collaboration area where I, the manager, will meet with our service providers who are housed at 214. Again, I go back to fidelity, I go back to monitoring, tracking, so there will be regular meetings with myself and whoever is housed there, as well as those partners that are not at 214. Hours of operation, Monday through Friday. Right now, again, this is tentative, 9 to 7 p.m. If we need to go to 8, we're trying to cut it off at that. That would be by appointment. But again, we want to be flexible and we want to be responsive to the needs of our families. So if someone can't make it at 7, they say, but I can get there. No, I can't make it at 6, and then we end at 7, but I can get there at 7, then certainly we are going to do our very, very best to accommodate that. Core staff for, oh, you switched on me, that's okay. But the core personnel for the wraparound part of the functioning is myself, the manager, which is already set, interviews hopefully in the next week, and then again, the secretarial specialist that I will be bringing forth. The next one is our funding source. So ICJA, which is the Illinois Criminal Justice Information Authority, there's an $800,000 grant. What comes out of that grant is the wraparound personnel, salaries and wages, contractual services, which are the partners or sub-grantees, and then there's equipment and technology. There's another grant, DCEO, which is the Illinois Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity, as well as the district, that's $2.5 million. Out of that money, expenditures are construction, renovations at 214 Washington, mechanical equipment, and then again, DCEO with the Schools of Waukegan Foundation at $750,000. and that's construction, vendors, and supplies. Next slide, please. Timeline of events. So there is a bit of historical, just briefly mentioned, with the City of Waukegan, the approval for the conditional use permit. Parking was March 20th. The contract approval was April 11th at the board meeting. District 60, the appointment of the director, April 11th. The needs assessment, which I will get to, will be rolling out soon, as well as we're responsible for the request for proposal process. I'll be getting to that as well. And then there's the construction with the timeline. So the construction started immediately upon the award, which was May of 2023. Phase 1, substantial completion of the lower level, which is where the wraparound center will be located, as well as the main level. We're looking at October of 2023. Phase 1 of the anticipated occupancy and launch, meaning our opening of the wraparound center, the lower level and the main level in November of 2023. So yes, quite a rigorous.
It really is, because that building is tore up from floor up.
Well, I was there 2+ weeks ago, and there was a lot of framing, the offices, the suites. So they've really been moving pretty fast. Next slide now, please, Mr. Bright. Oh, I'm sorry, I skipped it myself. You're on it, and okay. So the last slide for timeline is we're anticipating, again, our opening date of November 2023. Anticipated to have partners in place at the wraparound center. Of course, our goal is to have all suites occupied. However, come November, if we're not at max there, we're going to begin the work. We're opening the doors and we're serving. Continued pursuit of resources for additional assistance. As I spoke to before about the long-term goal, the vision is to have partners throughout Lake County. So even when we open, my responsibility is to continue to be out and present in making those connections and keeping the funding, the momentum of what we're doing of service, moving forward. Again, tracking outcomes. I listened in my previous role for 8 years. We talk about accountability and fidelity. And again, that's going to ensure that we are playing the long game where it comes to the wraparound. So we're going to, in terms of utilizing tools to track and monitor, all of that is part of the plan and it's ongoing. Okay. Needs assessment. So with the needs assessment, what we're looking for is baseline. How and where and what area is the community, are our families most impacted? So that the data from the needs assessment is definitely going to drive not only how we seek out partners or which partners, but it will also, in terms of help finalize the development of our eligibility requirements. There are some wraparound centers that I have looked in terms of the eligibility, like how do we do this? So some have, well, again, it's serious mental health and behavioral challenges. But if you are already involved with, say, 3 or more agencies, then you're qualified. Well, if we find as a result of our need assessment that most of our families are involved between 1 and 2 agencies, then they wouldn't meet that criteria. So that's why it's kind of important for us to get the needs assessment data back, and then we can determine what the eligibility requirements. I know there are many principals that are asking, okay, how do I know? How can can I get this family in? We don't just know that just yet. I want to get this data back, and then, so where's our director of communication? He and I have given ourselves a very hard timeline in terms of the needs assessment, and it's we want to roll it out on the 28th. We're going to have it open for families to complete for 10 days. And in that time, I'm going to be out front with that in terms of having some sort of public event where we were walking through the needs assessment. So families that say, well, I don't really understand what this means, and I don't want to mark this or that. And so I will be able to help them go through that, navigate that process, as well as dispel any maybe myth, because we know that we don't want to label our family, our children as certain things. So we're going to have public events within that 2-week window. Then there will be an analysis of that data. We want to have a focus group to invite some of our other stakeholders, internal and external, invite them in to help us to analyze that data and direct our work. Okay, request for proposal. This is a requirement anytime that you are having someone come in where there is going to be federal dollars, given we have to have the RFP. The RFP, I'm trying to find my slide now, I've got papers everywhere, but okay, the RFP is, again, anyone that receives federal dollars, and there will be that with our partners, I have to go through this process. It is a competitive, equitable process. So any and all, this will be, I'm certain, on all of our platforms, mainly our district website, to where people will be able to, or entities, I should say, because it's more like if you're Lansing Agency X, you would be able to fill that out. Also, within that RFP will be an evaluation tool, kind of like an application. And so they will complete that. We're going to have a review committee. So once the proposals are in, there will be a review committee that we then select. After we select, say, the 7, then the last step is for me to send that to the state. They do the final clearance. So it's an open, equitable, objective way of bringing in those partners. And there are certain requirements that each of the agencies must do. They must be registered in SAM.gov. Again, there was something, but that's okay. So, target schedule. Again, we have a very short window to start open the target schedule. We're going to open it up September 15. We want the RFP and the applications out. The deadline will be October 15th. So that still gives us some time to, one, have our needs assessment data, have our RFP secured, get it to the state, and so that we're still running towards that November launch. Is that it? Oh, communication. So I was like, okay, communication. Everything we're doing in terms of getting the needs assessment will be on like a survey. It will be on our district website, on all the school sites. Again, the Director of Communication and I are working together on that on all platforms. We're going to exhaust everything. Okay. Continuous outreach. Now that I have presented to the board, I feel like I will have more, because we have to, exercise decorum and discretion. So now I can be far more vocal in terms of just kind of building that momentum and being more definitive in terms of our timelines. But I had to wait until I presented to you all. So now it's just like full on. And any questions? Ms. Lindsay?
Ms. Lindsay, Ms. Gonzalez, and then I have one.
I first want to say I appreciate your apparent passion for the project, right? I think we have a good person in the position to lead the ship.
Thank you.
To make sure it sets sail appropriately. There's just a couple of pieces that I just want clarified or just to add on to. This is a hot topic for the community, right? And so the wraparound center needs to be somewhat removed from the debate around 214 Washington Street, right? And so I'm just going to encourage the community that if you have concerns about that building for proposed administrative purposes that's not wraparound center, please be explicitly clear, because I love the services that the Wraparound Center is going to provide for our community. One of the concerns that I've heard regarding the Wraparound Center is it's not just for Waukegan community, but for anyone in the area. So you gave me a head shake. So it's just for Waukegan families, or it's for local Lake County families? That's where I'm getting confused.
It's our students and families. I do think that we had a bit of a hiccup back in March when we were at the city, and there were two very different perspectives. And I believe, and Superintendent was there, Deputy Moulton, please correct me, but I believe this is for our students and our families starting out. Now, playing the long game, but right now, yes, we're looking at our students and families in the immediate community.
I just want to make sure that's clarified before people start engaging in discussions around this, because it is presented tonight. And when you say that you want to track the families, sometimes that can be triggering language for some people that have some certain concerns with any connotations to tracking. So I just want to maybe reframe it that it's just extended care to make sure that those gains that they made while receiving the wraparound services are continuing and they're still benefiting from them. So it's not like we're tracking you. It's just making sure that you are still successful with the services that you've already received.
And no, that's a very good point. Thank you for that. Kind of to nerves, but being in social services my whole career, over 20 years, and that's as far as I'll go with that. But I know the importance of language and perception and stereotypes. So when we talk about tracking, it's about, when I was in substance abuse counseling, my first career, it was the aftercare plan, so to speak. And so this is really to ensure that we're not just hands off because you met the goals and we're off now, and so you're on your own devices. So part of that first phase where we talked about the engagement and the team, and even in the second one when we're developing the plan, which was mentioning the orientation of the wraparound process. So whoever goes in, there's no surprises there. This is the process, this is, and so we make that agreement by definitely the second meeting, the second phase. So they'll understand that, I understand why you're doing this. It's not to track, and again, charge it to my nerves. But no, it's really aftercare, follow-up.
Exactly. So we just want to make sure that's very clear to the community. So thank you for that. With the needs assessment, I love how on the slide, and I'm just jumping because I wrote it above, but then you had your full slide for it. I'm loving the amount of attention for the communications around it. Are we also encouraging like our police department to share it out, our mayor to share it out? I'm just hoping that others in the community, as you see Waukegan Public Schools post it to their Facebook, as much as we can share that across the multitude of Waukegan related pages through social media, the better it is going to be for this community. So I'm just going to throw that plug out there if we're not already having those conversations to say, hey, this is going to be coming out. Can you be sure to share it and continue to get the word out? I'm just going to
that's a good point, and we have talked about exhausting all of our resources, and certainly with the city. I want to be as communicative with them as an entity as possible. Again, going back to that March meeting where we were kind of not on the same page, not because we didn't feel the importance or believe, but it was in the delivery or the messaging. So definitely I'm said again, I needed to be here first, and certainly we will go there, so.
Perfect. I just have a couple more. And so with the schedule for operation, right, the Monday through Friday, 9 to 7, if people need you guys to stay later, then you can be. Is this going to be set in stone, or as we're providing those services, if we're getting feedback from the community that like, hey, Wednesdays people aren't usually coming, maybe we could substitute in a weekend day where some of our working families have that accessible? Is that a possibility, or are we trying to stick just to the Monday through Friday and shifting the accessibility to the wraparound center that way?
I think we're trying to be as aligned with the district,
Right.
the school week as possible right now.
Yeah.
I will never say never, but at this point, there's so much to do
Yeah.
in such a short time. This is stable. And it also speaks to what we're trying to do and that we're going a step beyond the typical school day hours or school day weeks by going until 7 and if necessary to 8. So we're trying to demonstrate that we're willing to go above and beyond. But to go into the weekends, I think that we're not there yet.
Right, right. But it's not to say
Yeah.
that that might not be
Right.
part
We're
of
not- I
the
don't wanna
needs
say that.
assessment
Right.
or a future adjustment that we
Right.
make in the future, right? So we're just asking the families in the community to work with us as much as possible as we're getting this off the ground and to
Right.
extend some grace and patience.
Yes.
Because there is going to be some start and stops.
It
As we
absolutely
get
will. 'Cause this
right,
is
just like
new.
with everything, just like with
Right.
everything, right?
Right.
So it's not going to be perfect out of the gate. We just need to be collaborative, communicative, so that we can get it to what it needs to be. So
Right.
I'm glad to hear that. And then in terms of the funding, just because I know it's going to come up, the funding is just for the main and the lower levels, nothing above for the
Correct.
construction, correct?
Correct.
Okay, just because I know it's going to come up, let's just meet people where they are. And for the partnerships, because you said Greater Lake County, I've been speaking with other community activists, and they are also trying to bring services into the Waukegan area specifically from surrounding places. But a lot of times when they bring people in to talk, our families need to get out to, let's say, Lake Bluff or Highland Park or Lake Forest. So if those types of partnerships are in place with those communities, but the services need to be at their location, do we have plans for transportation?
I've had conversations about that because that's
love it.
part of the problem
Yeah.
is that we lack the transportation. Even coming to meetings here at Lincoln Center or any of the individual schools, that is sometime a problem. And I know that we do cab and things of that nature. So yes.
Okay, beautiful. That's all I have. Thank you.
Ms. Gonzalez?
Thank you. Great questions.
The only question, I'll send an email follow-up about the Schools Foundation being a funnel through for one of the, I don't know if it's a grant or one of the pieces of the grant. I know that Mr. Moten had talked to us previously, but you know, going from being a very small 501c3 to, you know, digesting this rather large lump sum comes with a lot of restrictions, a lot of requirements. So I just, maybe we do a little follow-up to make sure that we're, you know, preparing for that piece. But the one question I had was, just for clarity, that October 15th deadline is for partners who want to be part of the
Yes.
one of the 7 suites?
Those that fill out the RFP.
Okay.
Yes.
Ms. Hannah?
Oh, that's yours. I'm sorry, President Ewing. I'm just telling people to,
No,
I'm
you
calling
did-
their
you
name,
did
but
it.
that's your job. Sorry about that.
I want to piggyback on what Ms. Gonzalez was saying about the foundation money. Because I am confused. It is, it says Illinois Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity, DCEO, and then it says School Foundation. Which one is it?
One is the granting, right?
It's
No,
both.
Yeah.
Deputy Mo-
yeah,
oh,
'cause
here's
I
Ms.
need
Polk.
to
She's still here.
understand,
Good.
The Schools Foundation isn't the Illinois Department of Commerce and Economic
No.
Opportunity,
That's
and
not
it
what
shouldn't
the
be on
intent
that
is.
line.
You speak to that.
Board President, board members, superintendent, community members. The board is going to have to advance the money to the foundation because the foundation does not have that amount of money to pay. And so we've had preliminary discussions about accountability because the district has accountability measures. We have a ledger. We have all of that happening on the board side. And so we just wanted to make mention to the board that the foundation, as you all know, they don't have, what, $750,000 to advance these payments. So there is going to be accountability, because we have that. There's going to be reports to the board, and then as the foundation gets reimbursed, they're going to reimburse the Board of Education. It was important that I say that. It was a very good question.
So why is it framed under DCEO?
They're the grant. Yeah.
That's the grantor.
Would not for the school's foundation?
Yes.
Yes.
But it's a reimbursement grant, so they have to expend the money and then they'll be reimbursed.
I'm aware.
Right, so but the question was asked, so I want to make it explicitly clear that's why. So
Yes.
they are actually the awardees, right? But they have to spend and then they'll be reimbursed. So what Ms. Polk is saying is we are going to loan them the money in order to allow them to expend the funds. And then when they apply for their reimbursement or get their reimbursement, they will reimburse the district and the Board of Education for those expenses. So that is why the DECO, DECO, right? Is that the right acronym? Or DCEO, I'm sorry. Are the ones who are giving the money. And the actual awardee is not Waukegan Public Schools. The awardee for that portion of the grant is the Waukegan Public Schools Foundation, which is a separate 501c3.
I'm aware of all of that. My question, you have a very that timeline, particularly for construction. I know, and I walked the entire building from the lower level all the way to the towers. I saw what was going on. They're lofty goals, because, and I was there, a couple weeks ago. I walked around with the foreman of the project, and I am really trying to figure out how this is going to be done, because if November is the launch and the ribbon cutting and all of that, right? Then that means that that you're kind of going to be in a building that is under construction, because those other level floors, there's no way they're going to be done in November.
You're absolutely right, Ms. Hannah. And the goal is not to have the other floors done by November. The goal is to have the first floor and our lower suites completed by November. I was there, I believe, Friday. They are making great progress. We'll be ready. Yeah, they're moving really quick. We'll be ready by November. That's the timeline. If it pushes into the late November, we have up until the end of December. Am I correct?
Yes.
We've given us cushion, but for the grant, we have to be up and running by December, and we will be.
So you say we have to be.
Yeah, it's per the grant that we have to be opened by the end of December. So we'll be ready to go. We have some cushion in there in case we need it, but we don't foresee. I mean, you never know what can happen, right? But as of right now, we're looking to be on target.
Good.
Right.
Y'all brave.
Wonderful.
From what I saw at that building, I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah.
And the guys down there, I met Paul.
Okay, he's the head. Yeah.
And he was very honest and transparent, and he was very confident about things there, I just have to go back down there and see how they have progressed.
Well, and I think
since I was down.
Great point, Ms. Hannah. And instead of board members having to take trips down there, you always can, but the superintendent is already there going to be tracking weekly progress, so that'll be reported out to the board so you all can see construction progress as it progresses. I know not all board members are able to go down, but we do want to make sure that you are kept abreast of what is happening. I had just a couple questions then. Board of Education, I will end the meeting at 10, regardless of what's left. So I really do want us to get to the student board member policy conversation. When we talk about surveys, I think there's an awesome opportunity. We do want to gather information from our families, but Lake County Health Department did an extensive survey last year, which has a lot of great information. And then the Lake County Health Department also has the CHIP program, which is the Community Health Improvement Plan. There's a committee that includes a bunch of stakeholders that are looking at the social determinants of health, and they have survey information that I think can be included with whatever we're requesting from our families. That'll give a more holistic view. Mine may be a technical question that I can email if you don't want to answer, or like more time to kind of engage in writing. It's for that RFP process, right? Part of there are some organizations that would like to partner, but who don't necessarily need to be a sub-grantee, right? They have either their own funding source, meaning they are already a sub-grantee, or a grant recipient from the state and are GATA certified. Maybe they have private foundation funds. So is it a requirement that they be listed as a sub-grantee in our application if they're not actually receiving funds from the district to run their programming or operations?
So with my growing knowledge in terms of grants and all of that, and I've met with who is the administrator for this grant in Chicago, no, they would not to that extent. This is mainly for those that will be receiving that money. Again, when I spoke about having a broader reach and partnership, those individuals will not have to go through that particular process because they're not receiving funding. Only those that are housed at the Wraparound Center.
Is there a way for them to indicate, or if we haven't, let's think about an opportunity for them to indicate when completing the application if they would be seeking additional funds to support their programming, or if they are able to, like they would be doing this programming with or without Waukegan Public Schools. They just like the location to be,
and they want a partnership, but it's not that. I think that that's a great caveat. And when as I'm working with our councilman Clary, then I'm going to write that down.
Yeah, of course.
So that can certainly be a line item that we can put there for those who are not. So maybe, and I'm just saying this off the top of my head, but definitely add it there. But perhaps they only go so far. If we're A through M, they go A through D. So I'm going to write that down, and I'm certain that he can come up with the appropriate language for that.
And to give context, right, I'm thinking about when we visited Peoria and they had the attorney that was there, right? The district wasn't paying for those funds and resources. She was doing whatever she was doing in order to fund that outreach and program.
Yeah, we'll work with Ms. Dotson on that, ensuring that we remain within whatever grant guidelines we have as well.
And then just my final comment is, as we look at it, I know one of the goals would be to make sure, to Ms. Hannah's point, we have relationships with those other external entities. And there are 10 social determinants of health, and what we want to do is improve outcomes in those areas. And so while we may not own transportation, right, is being able to know what transportation services exist. While we may not own housing, is being able to know who does own it, and to your point, vetting it is, because the worst thing that happens now is families, there are a plethora of resources, but I don't want to show up to a location and then I need a birth certificate, and I didn't know I needed a birth certificate, right? And so those are the types of creative ways that I'm looking forward to. So I appreciate your work, and as Ms. Lensing said, your passion, and I'm excited about the project. in that it's something that is not 2 or 3 or 4 years away, but something that our families can realize in the very near term. So I thank you to you and all of those that were involved in making this happen, and appreciate you presenting to the board. And now you're going to go full throttle,
I'm going full throttle.
to the community and make sure that people know how to complete the RFQ process. Deputy Moulton may be a good opportunity to approach DWDC again, and Black Chamber of Commerce, Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, et cetera, just to make sure they know that that is open and it's not just for those in construction. So thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank
All
you.
right.
Okay. Oh, wow. I feel like I should do a little curtsy. Thank you, guys. Have a good night.
Good night.
It's coming up. 19A, Board Policy 4302, Code of Conduct and Ethical Responsibilities. This is it's not a second, it's a third reading, but we passed on it, but we didn't take a vote on it, so this will be it. It's the third time the board is seeing it. So this policy, Superintendent, if you read the recommended action.
It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the modifications to Board Policy 4302, Code of Conduct and Ethical Responsibilities, as presented for second reading.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. Riddle.
Second.
Second by Ms. Gonzalez. Any comments, questions? All in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. The policy is approved. Now we are at the student board member proposed policies. This is old business, but new business. And we have the information that is there. Can you open the attached document just to help me facilitate the conversation, Mr. White?
For 20A. For 20A. Lee.
28, Mr. White.
Yeah.
Next one, down 20A.
business.
New business. Yep.
Yeah.
The PowerPoint? No, go to the PowerPoint, which is the third attachment. Yes, the third attachment.
That's it.
Yeah.
Are you walking us through this, Kathy?
Nick?
I'm
Nick, are you going to walk him through this as
Yeah, he's just
previously
getting-
discussed?
And I just have to say that that I am I feel a little bit disrespected because I was not asked about sitting with the student board member to talk about this policy, and I guess maybe I'm being because see, nobody thought about a student board member except me, the voices of the students. And when I proposed this, it took a while for me to even get it. And so, I mean, I worked hard on the proposal to bring it to the Board of Education. And I didn't even get invited to even talk about this. And so, like I said, I feel a little disrespected because no one even told me that this was coming up.
This is the second time that it's being brought up. So Ms. Lenzing, the student board member, and Ms. Gonzalez submitted a proposed draft of changes and revisions that was presented to the board. There was comment and feedback that was requested. We did not receive any additional comments and feedback. I did ask for administration to review to help facilitate the conversation, and that's what we are doing now. So I do apologize that you're feeling disrespected, Ms. Hannah, but this is a conversation that we actually presented on almost a month ago at this time, if not before. Correct me if I'm wrong, Ms. Lenzing or Ms. Gonzalez, but this was actually proposed back in June.
Yes, but to Ms. Hannah's point, I'm sorry you feel disrespected, Ms. Hannah, or I shouldn't say that because that's not a good apology. I recognize that you brought student voice to the table. probably way longer than, you know, I even knew about the Board of Education. So we recognize that. You know, when Victor approached me, and I'm assuming Ms. Lansing too, see how they could, you know, and Victor will add, so I don't want to speak for him, but I got the invite, but that doesn't mean that it was exclusive. When we presented it back in June, we were like, is this something that the board has appetite
And
for?
we don't really,
And
thank you so much, Ms. Gonzalez,
Yeah.
but we don't have to waste time
Okay.
with that. But I said what I said, and we can move forward.
Okay.
But thank you so much.
Yes.
Go ahead, Mr. Alzakis.
Thank you and good evening, Board of Education President, Superintendent, board members, community members, and staff who are here. So I'm going to be going over this presentation that is in board docs, and Ms. Vanderbrook, our general counsel, Kathy, I'll probably be tagging you in on some parts that you'd be able to explain much more eloquently than I can. So to begin, just an overview of what we're going to be discussing. As was stated earlier, Mr. Hinojosa did work with Ms. Lensing and with Ms. Gonzalez and kind of crafting some new policies around some of the board member selection, some of the succession, some of the work and responsibilities that a student board member does. And it was very detailed. It had a lot of good information in there. And so we just wanted to talk the board through some of that to kind of get an idea of which direction we want to go as a district. And so throughout here, you'll see that there are some recommendations that the administration is giving on some of these items, and there's some other items that are kind of open for the board. I mean, ultimately, everything is open for the board to make the decisions, but there are some instances in which we do give a recommendation. So just to kind of give a little bit, as you can see there, sorry, I'm struggling here to get my laptop set up. The board's authority to appoint a student board member is set forth in Board Policy 2001, and the administration developed section and the appointment procedures which have been in effect for the past 5 years now, dating back to 2018. Guidelines outlining the responsibilities and how they've evolved since the position was created have also been developed, and that I believe is also uploaded into board docs, and also the administration is requesting, as I stated, that the board provide some direction on which way they want to go. So Mr. White, if you want to take us to our next slide. The school code is one of the things that I know we had discussed many years ago, Ms. Hannah, and that we've kind of reiterated. The school code states that the Board of Education may appoint a student to the board to serve in an advisory capacity, and then you could read the rest there of what it states about how the district will determine the limit, but you could see there that they may not grant the student member any voting privileges, et cetera. And so that's going to kind of guide as we go on. Also, the student board member may not participate or attend executive session of the board, and that is important in some of the future things we discussed. So we start off with just the current process. For those of you who have been on the board or who are familiar with it, you know, in October each year we kind of start the selection process. We send out the emails to the juniors and seniors. We let them know here's what the position's about. If you're interested, here are the qualifications. The qualifications generally include you have to be a sophomore or a junior, and that's something that the board back in 2017 and 2018 wanted us. Those were the 2 years that they wanted the candidates to come from. Want to have a GPA of 2.0. And aside from that, there's not too many other qualifications. Then there's the process. They submit a one-page personal bio. They submit written responses to 3 essay questions that we try to make relevant to what's happening with the student body. And then they provide a written reference. It could be from a teacher, it could be from an administrator, a community member. But all we require is one. Moving on to the next slide, the deadline for candidates is generally November. And it's right around like the time, like Thanksgiving, the week before Thanksgiving. That's when the deadline comes up. From there, all of the student bios, their answers to the essay questions, are emailed to the student body at Waukegan High School. So that goes out to all 4 grades. And the students have a chance to review the bios, to review their answers to the essay questions. And then the students vote. And we do that voting. It's just a one choice, multiple choice through Google Forms each year. And students are allowed to vote for one individual. And then the 2 top vote getters, and it used to be, I believe in year 1, the board interviewed all the candidates. We had upwards of more than half a dozen candidates that year, I think 9. At that year, some board members, I believe it was Ms. Hannah and Mr. Rivera at the time, talked about how about the students vote. And so that's something we implemented that following year, where the students actually vote, and then the top 2 vote getters move on to interviews with the Board of Education. And I believe most of the board members would be familiar with how that process works. They do interviews, somewhere 35 minutes or so with each candidate, and then the board selects a member in January, and they get seated for essentially that entire calendar year. So Mr. Hinojosa's term is going from January 2023 through January 2024. So he's essentially the 2023 student board member. And at the end of his term, and we'll get into this, students have the option, if they'd like, to run again. Victor's only our second sophomore, so last time that came up, Miss May was not interested in running again, but ultimately, once that time comes around, it's up to Victor's discretion. That's what the board has left it at this point, if he'd like to run again, but he'd have to go through that whole process that we discussed. So what we're going to talk about here is some of the items that were in the policy, and Ms. Vandenberg, would you mind taking the first part while I get settled on the next ones?
Sure. The first question is whether the board wants to create a standalone student board member policy, or whether we could build out some of the procedural pieces and articulation of the roles and responsibility of the student board member in the existing board policy 2001, which is where you already address the creation of a student board member position. And the administration's recommendation is that we not create a standalone policy, but that we build it off in the board member policy, which keeps like information in a single location.
So looking for guidance on that. I'll just start down at that end, Ms. Lindsay. And then actually, Mr. Hinojosa,
Yeah,
I'll start
yeah,
with you
perfect.
related to that piece.
First off, I want to say thank you to the administration for making the slide and bringing the opportunity of putting your recommendations. I thank you very much for putting your side of the story. For me, I feel that I said that we should have a separate policy for the fact that the original policy that Ms. Lenzing and Ms. Gonzalez wrote with me was almost 5 pages long. And that policy, obviously, when it gets edited and stuff like that, will get smaller, but over time, logistically, that just seems like a very big policy that's, let's just say realistically, 7 pages, because the first one is 2 originally, and now the addition of 5 would make 7. And the grand majority of this new policy would just be specifically for the student board member, not even just for board membership specifically, right? And I feel just logistically that seems kind of weird that half of the policy or more than 2/3 of the policy would just be this specific item, and then this small section that talks about just general board membership. So logistically, I just see that as kind of weird, but I do get general counsel's objective of keeping similar policies together. I also see it as a legitimacy aspect, that obviously the board does appreciate the work that every student board member does, and it is a tough job, and I feel like being able to give the recognition that this is a legitimate legal position from the school code and being able to give us our own specific policy would give that type of legitimacy to the public and the students, knowing that all the board does understand that this is a big position and there's a lot that goes into it. So that's really my thought process through it. So if Ms. Lenzing or Ms. Gonzalez and the rest of the board wants to give comment on that.
Just real briefly, Ms. Vanderbroek, the current, I'm going off of memory, the current policy 2001 is referenced. Does it already point to that the board has the ability to appoint a student board member?
Yes.
Yes, I thought it did. So I would, and I'm going to go and I'm going to concur with Mr. Hinojosa in that we keep the current reference to the board has the ability to, host a student board member, and then we would reference a policy, and it can be a policy or resolution. I'm open, but if we're saying policy and that's what Mr. Hinojosa is requesting, I would support it. I don't necessarily, Mr. Hinojosa, typically with policy, you do want to keep it somewhat general, and then, so maybe it will be pared down from 5 pages, but I will support the idea of a standalone policy. Ms. Lindsay, and then I'm going to just go straight down the line. So that's why I'm starting at that end.
Yeah, I agree with that sentiment, especially if we are going to make changes to it, if it does become a policy and not a referendum, I believe as you referred to it.
Or resolution. but yes.
Resolution, thank you, the different R word. Yeah, so if we're going to be making amendments to that, it's specific to that role and it doesn't tie us to any considerations around board membership itself, so I agree.
Ms. Hannah.
I don't think we need a standalone policy addressing a student. I don't think we need a standalone policy addressing the student board members' participation because if you look in the statutes, it is included. It's included in board members, and it's at the bottom of the statute. And that says basically what at all, except that we could put a few caveats in it for the student board member. But it should not be where I mean, I don't even understand. The only thing that if something should go into any kind of process of selection, I would love to see, as I originally proposed, that the election of the student board member is made kind of a big thing at the high schools, where there's a day set aside for all of the students to go and to vote and be able to drop it in a ballot box. That's what I have always wanted, and that way we would get, I believe, more participation, more student participation in who is selected as the student board member, because yes, we as a board are able to select a student board member, but I believe our student body should be the one selecting their representation. So that's what, but I don't think we need any kind of standalone policy addressing this.
Thank you, Ms. Hannah. Jeff?
To Ms. Hannah's point, I do agree with her, because anything else that the students have, Ballon Victoria, whatever they may have, it's always the students making their decisions for the students, because who better knows who's good to represent them than themselves, because they see them all year round. So, yeah, so I agree with Ms. Hannah on that one.
Well, the question though on this one, Mr. McBride, is do you support a standalone policy or rolling it into the current board policy 2001 on board membership?
Well, I'm going to pass, because I don't really understand what the standalone policy even really entails myself, to be honest with you.
Gotcha. Mr. Riddle?
I think I'd go with Ms. Hannah that I don't know that we need to create a separate policy. I like the idea of an advisory and guidelines such as was proposed here, but I don't know that we need a policy.
Right.
We might, the policy that we have, 2001, we could change that if we wanted to add 2 student board members, one from each campus. I know it says a student, I know, but we've talked about the need of having,
Right,
that could
we
be
did.
discussed at some time further, having 2 student board members, advisory board
each
members
po-
from each school, from each campus, from each campus. That's just another thought, but I don't, to
So
answer the
yours
question,
is
no,
no.
I don't think we need create another policy right now.
Ms. Gonzalez, tiebreaker.
I think we do. Just because the way that I see it is we're just finding its own designated place that the policy goes under. It's a categorical thing. You go into our board docs, you know, if you want to direct students to their student board policy and get an understanding of not only the guidelines but the whole procedure, the more that we talk about it, I feel like it would be easier. To me, the role seems kind of secondary when we talk about board membership. Not that it's, those rules would not apply to the students. They absolutely would. But they seem secondary because they're, a paragraph at the end of that board membership policy. That's just the way that I view it.
There's a procedural question. I'm taking it
Yeah.
as a majority are supporting, and I guess we don't actually have to vote. So it's a consensus. And so because it's a consensus, a majority of the voting members voted in the affirmative or are building the concurrence.
So you had 3 supporting a separate policy. You had 1 supporting not a separate policy, 1 pass, and 1 suggesting we don't need a policy. Am I right? Was that correct, Mr. Riddle, or was your position
I'm
to
saying-
not have a standalone? It'd be in
Ms. Hannah.
I agreed with Ms. Hannah that we keep the current policy
In
we
the
have
existing.
and develops such
Yeah.
as this guidelines for that student
Yeah.
board member, what their responsibilities are, what they do, but it not be a separate policy.
Yeah.
Right.
So embed the amendment. in
That
the
could be
existing
an
policy.
amendment, it could be
really
adapted and grow.
The issue comes with how to address Mr. McBride's position, which is a pass, which is usually a no if we have a particular motion. We're right to say that.
You want me
But
to-
we don't.
Well-
we have
You
an
want me to
either or.
amend my
Well,
vote
let's
and make it
clarify.
correct?
Yeah.
I
Do
can
you-
do
Yeah,
that.
I don't want him, I
Let
want
me-
him to make
what
a
I-
knowing decision.
Yes.
Right.
Would you like us to try and clarify what we're asking?
Well, just because of the fact that Ms. Hannah herself was the creator of this policy that we're talking about in general, I coincide with with her.
Okay.
All right, so that's a tie. So currently, we don't have support in order to have a standalone policy. Next item.
So the next item gets into procedures, and there's a couple slides on this, but the first part, and it's probably best we take it in chunks, discuss the voting. We talked about before how the students vote, and it's a multiple choice. You pick your top candidate, similar to how we vote at the polls as adults. One thing that was recommended was ranked choice. Now, ranked choice, for those not familiar with it, and we don't have it in Illinois, so my familiarity with it is minimal, is essentially you'll rank your candidates, my top candidate, my second candidate, my third candidate, and then different areas will have a different process for which they kind of vet those out and what that means as down the line. What we are recommending is to keep it as it is with the you vote for your top choice, and then the top 2 candidates will move on to the board interviews for just the sake of the simplicity to students. We currently don't have like a ranked choice software that we have in place. We'd probably have to go about and find one. We'd also then have to train students on ranked choice voting. Now, Illinois may be looking to add that down the line, in which case it becomes a different discussion. But at this time, the recommendation is that we keep it as is. One thing that we do get into the later part of this page is about wanting to open it up to, the possibility of if it's, we haven't had a tie yet for like that second spot. But if there are ties in the future, we do obviously want to entertain the idea of the board interviewing 3 candidates rather than having to do like a tiebreaker.
Is there a question, Ms. Hannah?
Yeah, I really, it makes me excited because I could see the potential excitement of the students. They have election day.
We get that one.
And it is, I mean, the from the time that the student board members submit their names, right? They're out there in the schools. They're going to be campaigning for the position. Because see, that's one of the things that my original intention was to get them to learn the process, the civic process of voting, campaigning, and the result, giving them.
So my point, Ms. Hannah, with this one is, so do you want to keep it currently where the students vote? And
No, I don't know. I want to change it. I wanted to make Make it an activity.
So I get that
For-
piece. The question though is, do we want to
The format.
the format? Do you want ranked choice voting, or do you just want the top two go to the board?
I don't think none of them should come to the board.
So you just want majority, whoever gets the highest vote wins.
Yeah,
What
for
your
the students.
that's what your proposal is.
Mr. President,
Gotcha.
if I may.
Go ahead, Mr. Henhouse, and then I see you, Ms. Lindsay. And
Okay,
then I'm keeping my comments. I want to keep my commitment. It's 10 o'clock. Go ahead, Mr. Henhouse.
When it comes to the original proposal, and my idea was obviously having ranked choice voting as an aspect, because obviously the nation and some states are moving towards having a more representative democracy, and when it comes to voting, being able to not just pick one candidate and being able to understand that, oh, this may be my first choice candidate, but I also think this candidate would also do well, but it's not my first choice. And as you know, it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, depending how many they are. First choice, let's say the fourth choice is not the biggest, they get distributed depending on what your second choice is, et cetera, et cetera. I felt like that would be important because obviously as the nation goes through that, I feel like we should be teaching our students, and what better way of showing ranked choice voting would be through their elected representative, right? And I would have liked it also if students would have chose through ranked choice voting, but obviously I do get the administration's aspect of may not having the software to do that, and Google Docs is not capable of that. I learned that the hard way. It doesn't have that capacity, but I am open. I originally had a position on this, but after hearing the board, I will leave that up for recommendation wise. If we want ranked choice voting or keeping it first past the post, I feel first past the post is just too old at this point to keep going. But if the board, and I do lean towards ranked choice voting, but whatever the board decides at this moment, I would be happy with either.
Final comment, Ms. Lindsay.
Ranked choice voting is more equitable. That's what we want in our district. So I understand it is harder, it's more complicated, but it's worth it. So equity is our goal. Ranked choice voting is how we get there. I get that not all of the nation is on board with that, but that's not the bar that I'm holding myself accountable to. I'm holding myself accountable to what is equitable for these students. And if their number one comes in fourth place, they should be able to say, well, I get that not everybody likes who I liked, but I'm going to support number 3, right? And so their vote should go to something.
So I will hold it there. We do have somewhat of a deadline, so that's why Mr. Alexakis is very anxious for Mr. Hinojosa, because if it means any changes to his role, it's important that we get through it. But we've had multiple meetings that we've gone past 11, and so I want to be respectful of everybody's time, which is what, so what that looked like. So it is 10:03. I'm going to ask for final comments related to board comment, and then we're going to adjourn and go home. I'm going to start down at that end with Ms. Gonzalez.
This is board member time?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, it's board member.
Yeah, I appreciate everyone's comments. I wish that we could get through business more efficiently. I want to welcome everyone to the start of the school year. I hope that the first couple weeks they settle in and it's an easy transition for those going into middle school and high school. And that's pretty much it.
Mr. Riddle?
Yes, I'm just going to welcome everyone back again that's in school, and continue to be positive that this is going to be your best year ever. That isn't going to happen unless you work with others, work with your teachers, work with your principals, build your school up, build this community up. You can make a difference. Thank you.
Mr. McBride.
I want to just echo what Mrs. Gonzalez made reference to with efficiency in this board. It is now 10 o'clock, and LeBaron has children that he probably won't get a chance to say goodnight to because they're probably in the bed. Now, other staff members have children that they don't get a chance to say goodnight to, as even our board member here. Also, the commute time, that's another hour he has to go because he has to drive 45 minutes to where he lives. And I'm sure you're not the only staff member that comes in here and sit down that has to do the same thing. And I just think that, once again, unless I'm wrong, you guys tell me, but when people have families and kids and stuff, they should be able to go home respectfully and be with their kids and put their kids to bed at appropriate time. And I think that we're doing a disservice, being a disservice to our staff that's here, as well as our teachers when they come in and sit down with kids. It to me is just, and then I would also say, I don't think there's a board in Illinois stick around to 11:30 and 12 o'clock at night on a consistent basis all the time. Now I can see it every now and then if we had to stick around for something, but this is every board meeting. To me, it just don't make no sense. So I hold my comments. I don't say nothing because if I say something, we instead of 10, it maybe go on a little longer. And at some point, we as a board, we need to come to some kind of understanding and recognize what I'm speaking about in terms of being respectful to staff and ourselves also. And back to the policy that was being spoke about, as far as I'm concerned, I don't think we really hear from all the voices of the kids when we start talking equity. So I think we need to take a look at that too, because there are some kids out there that have issues that needs to be addressed, and they don't get a chance to speak about them. So anyway, I would say to our board member, did he leave?
He stepped out.
Yeah.
That when you do start bringing up information pertaining to our students, I just like to hear about from all students issues, because there's students out there that I think don't get a chance to actually divorce their opinion, maybe because of the fact they don't have a 2.0, but they still have opinions, and I think that needs to be heard. Thank you.
Ms. Hannah.
I just wanted to, I'm glad that Mr. McBride brought that up, because see, we are, if we wouldn't be here at 10 o'clock. And with all due respect, superintendent's report, the presentations that come under your superintendent's report, those proposals and reports, they really should be presented at the student achievement meeting. And I'm gonna say tonight, Mr. McBride, if we had not had that presentation, we probably would be out of here. And so I think we need to talk more about what is being presented at the Board of Education business meeting, and what's going to be presented at the Committee of the Whole meetings on the third Tuesday, okay? Because I heard it at a conference that no new program, presentation, or anything should ever be presented at a business meeting. And so I think that we need to talk about that and put that where it belongs. And then maybe because the presentations are very meaningful, and there's gonna be questions, and that accumulates time. And so I'm just saying, and but anyway, I'm sorry it's so late, you all. I hope you guys ate.
Thank you, Ms. Hannah. Ms. Lindsay.
I am a parent. I have 3 young children. And I, as an individual, before I ran for this position, came to board meetings and was well aware that they went long into the night. And what I'm seeing is that there's a lot of work to do in this district, and that is going to take time. There are going to be, we're in the process of rebuilding trust with our community and our constituents, and our staff and our administration, and amongst board members, and that's going to take time. So it's, for me personally, it's a bit frustrating to be lumped into this generalization that if you have kids, or if you have a family, or if you need to drive, your time is more valuable. And that's just from my corporate lens of resource groups that we have that talk about different identities, right? So there's the Black business professionals, and then there's working parents, right? There's different groups where we come together. And I think a lot of people that are single without kids are left out of that conversation of their time being valuable. But for me, this time is valuable and well spent because we're getting through district matters as we try to get the ship on the right path and to maintain. So I'm just going to be in disagreement with that philosophy, and that's fine. In terms of my board member comment, I do want to echo, let's continue to speak positively of our students, of our fellow district staff and colleagues, because if you put that out there, people will rise to that. So as we've seen, to put it gently or mildly, some incidents or some hiccups to the start of the year, that does not have to define our year. So I hope that students find their community, right? Find those peers that lift you up, that are positive influences. Find those mentors and those role models so that you are getting as much out of your district education as possible, both academically and socially and emotionally. And just try to stay away from the distractions. And if you need help staying away from the distractions, reach out and get help. Okay? But I hope that everyone has a good close to their second week. And I believe we're meeting again in September unless we have a special meeting. So enjoy the rest of your August.
Yeah, we could talk about that because talk to the superintendent. But part of that, we have a lot of special meetings, so I don't want to get on a timepiece. I do want to echo we got important work that we need to get through, and so figuring out the ebbs and flows and the push and pulls and the balance is one that we're working on. I want to thank everybody for coming out. I want to thank Mr. Hinojosa. I do want to stress is that I think it's important that you're engaging with policy in this way. I know that you are more aware than others of the slow process that is democracy, but I do apologize because to Ms. Gonzalez's point is we keep talking about all the conversations we want to have, right? But it makes it hard to get to the conversations that we want to have when we can't get through sometimes just the business of the board. So I don't want to belabor it. I thank all of you for coming out. What I will say in my board member time, superintendent, and we heard it expressed from the podium, and then to echo what Ms. Lensing said, is our students are capable, are competent, our staff members are capable, they are competent. What we are asking is part of what we felt last year is because those expectations kind of went on a little bit longer while we were giving students grace with their return. It allowed for that to kind of set in as the culture. And so it's early enough in the year that not by suspending mass droves of students, that is not the solution, but to really sit down, set expectations, meet with those students that we know are having some of the troubles and issues that we contacted over the summer, that we're starting to see some of the behaviors from, that have had fights early, and really wrapping ourselves around. So I'm not assuming that the schools are not already doing that, but I want us to vocalize that to the community so that they see a response to the issues that they are bringing, is because it's we are parents in the district. We know, and those of us who have loved ones in the district, we know how important safety is, and we don't want the appearance to be that, you know, there's this just a bunch of fights, right? I'm not saying that's the reality. We don't want it to become the reality, so let's put some things in place in order to make sure that it is addressed up front. And we have seen an uptick in violence, unfortunately, and so we want to make sure that we are listening to the community, being responsive to the community, and making smart decisions as we put our kids' safety first. So with that, I'd like to call for a motion.
Wait. I just want to address something that was asked at the podium about the weather and the situation for tomorrow and Thursday. Because they're talking about the air temperature is going to be 100 and the heat index is going to be up to 115. And I know we've done a wonderful job with the air conditioners in the schools and classrooms, but we still have areas in the in the schools that are not. And I'm just wondering, can we release early?
No, we're on a regular school day tomorrow. We do have air conditioning. Communication has went out about water, about moving people around that may not have air in a certain area. We're looking at gyms, but we are full operational on today's Wednesday and Thursday.
Both days?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Now, that could always change though, but right now we're going. We have air, we invested in air, we're going. Our kids need to be in school.
Right.
And so we're up and running.
And to add on to that, to the credit of the district, I as a parent got communication for my littles that outdoor activities were canceled, right? So
Right.
there are some measures that they're putting into
Yeah,
place.
I'm aware.
But if you as a parent feel that it's
100%.
not
That
safe,
was my point, Ms. Lindsay.
your call. It
As
is
a
your call
parent,
as a parent.
You make the best decision. The superintendent has made it a goal that as much as possible she wants schools to remain open. That is discretion of the superintendent. It is one of the authorities to open and close schools. And so that decision rests with the superintendent's office. If you as a parent do not feel comfortable sending your child to school, you do what's best for your child. But as of right now, communication is that we will be open. Superintendent, just for those who are watching online, where can they get updates if anything was to change?
Definitely our Facebook page. If something was to change, we'd have a mass text message and communication in the form of a letter, etc. Maybe a phone call would go out. But our anticipation is it's going to be school as normal for this week.
Thank you.
So there are guidelines I do want to bring up because I did ask my chief of staff this earlier about extracurricular and sports. So there's IHSA guidelines on when they can practice, when they can't. So we're also following those. I want to make that very clear.
Super fast, because I love that. I apologize,
No,
but
no,
this
you're
is
good.
important, right?
It is.
You brought up the text message. So families that haven't signed up to get the district text messages, or if they are worried that they don't have the right number on file, where do they go to get that updated so that they can get those text messages ongoing?
I'm going to tell you your first point of contact should always be your school principal. So just email your school principal and they will assist you with that.
Thank you. With that,
Sorry about that.
you're fine. No, it was a good question. And we don't want to tell anybody when they can use their mental health days. With that, I'd like a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. McBride, second by Ms. Lindsay. All in favor signify with aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Meeting is now adjourned. Thank you, Board of Ed.